Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm, and you are watching second and final part of What If Naruto travel back in time and make Tsunade his lover. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And for more exclusive and spicy content, follow me on Patreon. Link is in the description below. And now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The Senju house. After 5 years, Naruto is 12 years old. Age of Tsunade. 13 teams 7 and 9 received their summon contracts 5 years ago, and a lot has transpired since then. Due to their respective performances, the Hokage has elevated both teams to the rank of Chunin. They have completed numerous missions from C rank to A rank, many of which were joint ventures. Over the past 5 years, their training has become more intense, and they have all improved their ninjutsu, genjutsu, bukajutsu, art of weapons, and, in the case of Team 9, kenjutsu, as well as taijutsu skills. Regarding taijutsu, Jiraiya and Orochimaru have both been taught solid styles by their summons. The white-haired boy has learned the toad's fighting style, Frog Kata, while Orochimaru has learned the snake's snake fist. Over the past 5 years, Tsunade's abilities as a medical nin have significantly improved. She can now treat the majority of wounds and even some poisons. Naruto is now regarded as a level 11 seal master due to his advanced fuinjutsu abilities. When he attained level 8 mastery 2 years ago, Mito gave him a special gift, notes and formulas written by Tobirama Senju for his teleportation jutsu, Hiraishin. For the past 2 years, he has been reviewing them in an effort to understand and refine them whenever he has free time. In his spare time, Naruto also perfected his 3 bloodlines. He can now use lava release to create molten rock geysers from the ground around him, as well as create lava inside of himself and spew it out like the 5th Mizukage did. He can even use the rubber and quicklime versions of lava release. He can precisely produce corrosive vapor and regulate the intensity and range of its acidic nature with boil release. He can also use it similarly to Han, the final Jinchuriki of the 5 tails, who could use it to move much more quickly, boost the force of his blows, and release steam from his body to burn or melt his surroundings, though not to the same extent as Han and Kakuo. He was able to figure out how the 3rd Kazekage and Gaara controlled their sands, and he now uses his magnet release to control 3 different types of sand, iron, cobalt, and gold. The cobalt sand, which is silver-gray and somewhat resembles real silver but is far more resilient and strong, is his favorite to use. He showed it to Tsunade, who had a lot of questions. He has also been working on developing wood and ice, the final 2 nature bloodlines he is supposed to have. Over the past year he's had some success with ice, creating tiny cubes of ice and lowering the temperature around him. He still needs more training because, as of right now, all he can do with the wood he hasn't quite gotten is grow tiny plant saplings. Additionally, Naruto no longer uses weights for training. Instead, he now uses gravity seals. He had to start using gravity seals, which are currently set at level 2 of 100, making his personal gravity 4 times that of other people, after he maxed out his wrist and ankle weights last year. Because hidden Mitsurugi depends on Godspeed, Shinsoku, which is essentially drawing your blade, striking, and then resheathing it in the blink of an eye. It also aids him in his kenjutsu. In addition, Tsunade and Naruto have become even closer over the past 3 years due to the deaths of her parents. Tsunade's father, Itama, was sent on a mission 3 years ago, just days after her 10th birthday. Even though he was a member of the T&I department, his team was ambushed by ninja from the Hidden Rock village during the mission, and they were all killed. Their bodies were sent back to the Leaf as a message. The blonde was devastated by her father's death, to the point where she would spend weeks sitting in her room, crying in the dark. After a while, Naruto grew tired of this and broke down her door, even though Mito objected. He then walked into her room, slapped her across the face, and told her that Itama wouldn't want her to stop living her life because of his death. Rather, he would want her to remember the good times and use his death as motivation to become the greatest kunoichi the world has ever seen, because in the end, he was always her biggest supporter. She sobbed into his chest, but eventually realized he was correct, and she emerged from her funk. The redhead, however, got into trouble for breaking down her door, and Mito forced her to fix it, which made Tsunade laugh uncontrollably. Naruto simply accepted it all, laughing it off as she replaced her love for her father with her friendship for himself. Then, last year, another tragedy struck the Senju family when Amaya Senju passed away. The blonde woman had a very rare disease the year after her husband's death, and she had tried to stay strong and fight it for the sake of her children, but it wasn't enough, and 2 years after her husband's death, Amaya Senju died at home in her bed. Since then, the blonde began to become much more affectionate with her red-haired best friend, even giving him little pecks on the cheek when he's particularly sweet. This time, however, Naruto prevented Tsunade from going into mourning and regret. He held her at the funeral, serving as her rock, and remained by her side for the next few weeks, even going so far as to force Sarutobi and Danzo to force teams 7 and 9 to train together more frequently than once a month, even after everyone else had left due to the intense rain. As a result of their newfound intimacy, he has realized that the blonde has a crush on him and that he has developed a crush on her, of course. This is made easier by the fact that she is not only a strong kunoichi but is also growing into a gorgeous young woman. Additionally, the fact that she is his best friend in the world, the one person to whom he can confide almost all of his secrets and trust that she won't tell anyone, and the person who makes him laugh the most in the village. The issue is that he hasn't had the guts to tell her he likes her more than just as a friend and ask her out on a date, just the two of them. Another thing that has changed for all of them is that they have all grown. Naruto is now 5 feet 1, which is great for him because in his previous timeline he was the shortest of his class, but now he's slightly above average. His hair is longer, just like it was in his previous timeline, but red, and his outfit has only slightly changed, with his vest featuring an image of a moon and a dire wolf howling at it. Tsukumo's spiky silver hair has grown long enough to tie into a small ponytail at the back of his neck, and he now wields the Hitaki family white light chakra saber. A tanto strapped to his back. Izumi has grown to 4 feet 11 inches and her body has begun to take on a more feminine appearance, with her waist getting smaller, her hips slightly flaring out, her B-cup breasts developing, her hair falling to her rear, and her Sharingan has fully developed with all 3 tome in her eyes. Team 7 has also matured. Tsunade, as previously mentioned, has developed into a stunning young lady with her blonde hair still in a high ponytail. She now stands 4 feet 11 inches tall, has a toned, slim body, and sports low C-cup breasts. Orochimaru, like Naruto, is 5 feet 1 inch and still slim, with skin as pale as snow and hair that reaches his lower back. Jiraiya is still the tallest member of the group at 5 feet 4 and has started to become broad-shouldered, indicating that he will eventually have a large and powerful build. The two team sensei are now both 31 years old, and while they exhibit slight signs of aging, their hairstyles remain unchanged. Our red-haired hero wakes up in his bed in the Senju main house, which is now occupied only by himself, Mito, Tsunade, and 7-year-old Nawaki Senju. He opens his eyes and sits up in his bed, rubbing away the sleep and then yawning while stretching his arms above his head and listening to the cracks on his bones as he finishes. His door opens and he hears the rush of tiny feet on the wooden floor before a mop of brown hair jumps onto his bed. Naruto Oni-san. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. The red-haired mop is Tsunade's younger brother Nawaki, whom the redhead laughs at. I'm up, Nawaki-kun, no need to jump on my bed like that. Naruto shakes his head as he hears someone laughing in his doorway and turns to see Tsunade leaning against the doorframe with a soft smile on her face. I'm glad I'm not the only one to get a wake-up call, he says, as his blankets slide down to reveal his nude torso, making the blonde blush at his toned body. Especially his six-pack abs. He smiles inwardly at her pink cheeks, but Nawaki interrupts him, saying, Oni-san, you said you'd help me with my taijutsu today. Get out of bed and let's start training already. He sighs at this, saying, Nawaki-kun, you need to calm down. I'll help you with your taijutsu seeing as I have the next couple of days off of missions and training. However, before I can do that we need to have breakfast, and I need to get dressed, and I can't do that with you and Tsunade-chan in here being that I'm only wearing boxers. The blonde-haired Senju blushes so red that she looks like a tomato as she rushes out of the room. He gets dressed casually, puts on some blue pants and a blue kimono shirt with a red Uzumaki swirl on the back and a picture of whirlpools along the hem, and heads down to the dining room for breakfast. When he gets there, he sees that everyone is seated, so he says, Good morning, Mito Obasan. The older redhead, who now appears to be in her 40s but is closer to 60, smiles kindly at him and says, Good morning, Naruto-kun, I trust you rested well after returning from your mission last night. He nods his head at this, filling his plate with food and taking his usual seat next to Tsunade, who is still blushing a little. Tsunade looks down at Mito's comment. The way things are looking, the world is going to be in war again soon. It'll be you youngsters who will fight the battles. Naruto responds. War breaking out is unavoidable in the times in which we live, Mito Obasan. There will always be war as long as people refuse to understand each other. All we can do is to fight for our country and loved ones with everything we have. He subtly glances sideways at the blonde seated next to him. Little Nawaki chooses to shift the conversation when he notices the solemnity of the older people at the table. Tsunade Oni-chan, can you help Oni-san teach me more about taijutsu? The blonde girl asks her brother, who resembles their father, with a gentle smile. Sorry, Squirt, no can do. Unlike Naruto-kun here, I don't have a week off of training and missions. I have to head straight to my team's training ground when I'm done here, maybe next time. He frowns, but nod his head slowly as Naruto gives him a kind smile. Don't worry, Nawaki-kun. I've sparred with your big sister enough times that I know the Senju style pretty well, even though I don't use it. The 7-year-old's face lights up once more as he nods enthusiastically. Tsunade leans in close to the redhead and whispers, "Thank you, Naruto-kun. I owe you for this. Just name your price and I'll pay it." He smiles back at her and whispers, "No problem, Tsunade-chan. The kid is like a little brother to me, besides I am the one who promised to help him with his taijutsu, so no need to owe me." As they return to their meal, the blonde muses, "You idiot. I was trying to hint that you could ask me out. I swear if he doesn't pull his head from his ass soon, then I'm going to act first and ask him to take me out on a date myself." Soon after breakfast is over and the blonde says goodbye to the other residents, Naruto leads Nawaki back to the training ground and the two start training mostly. The red-headed boy corrects the boy's stance and his mistakes in the kata while telling him to hit the training log harder when lunchtime arrives. He tells the child, "Alright, that's enough for today, kiddo. You don't want to overwork yourself. Take the rest of the day to go out and play with your friends after you eat lunch." "Alright, Oni-san. Thanks for helping me out, Naruto Oni-san. I know how busy you and Oni-chan usually are being shinobi." The brown-haired boy gives him a grateful smile and nods enthusiastically. "No need to thank me, Nawaki-kun. I'm always happy to help you out no matter how busy I get. You can always count on me to help you, kid. Now run along." The child nods and smiles brightly before running off to find his academy friends in the village. He pulls out the notes on the Hiraishin in the room, both the second's and his own redrawing of his father's Hiraishin seal, which he saw during the Fourth War and then erased from memory. Looking over Tobarama's notes on his version of the Hiraishin and his father's seal, he discovers that both are composed of several smaller seal matrices, and that Minato's is more sophisticated. Realizing this, he starts to separate the similar seals from the dissimilar seals as the sun fades and the moon takes its place. A gentle feminine hand touches his shoulder, bringing him out of his reverie. He turns to face a freshly showered Tsunade and says, "Naruto-kun, Ba-chan sent me up here to tell you that it's time for dinner." He smiles and pats her hand, saying, "Thank you, Tsunade-chan." He then looks out the window and notices how dark it is, thinking, "Wow, I didn't even realize it had gotten dark out. Time sure flies when you're in the zone." He gets up from his desk, stretches, feeling the kinks leave his body, then turns back to the blonde, saying, "Well, let's eat, Tsunade-chan." She nods, and as they descend the stairs, she asks, "So are you any closer to figuring out how to use Uncle Tobarama's jutsu?" He chuckles at this and blushes a little at the feel of his arm between her breasts as they enter the dining room, where they sit in their spots and the little family starts to eat dinner together. The redhead gives her a smirk that she knows all too well, the one he gets when he's made progress on something. "I finally figured out all the little seals that the second used to create the technique. Now it's just a matter of reworking those seals to fit my chakra and improving them. Once I've done that, then I can begin to work on using the Hiraishin myself." She smiles at that and gives him an embrace. Ground 9 for training. After 2 months here, we see Naruto engaging Tsukumo in a kenjutsu battle, blocking blows from the other 13-year-old boy's white light chakra saber, which, as its name implies, leaves a trail of white light whenever he strikes with it. On the outside, the redhead appears composed, blocking, dodging, and parrying his fellow Chunin's strikes with ease, but on the inside, he's anxious because, as a birthday present from Tsunade, he plans to ask her out on a date tonight. His body flickers back 20 feet as he parries another stab from his friend. Seeing Tsukumo getting ready to rush him to continue their spar, he raises his katana high in the air and intones, "Hidden Mitsurugi Ryu. Doryasan. Earth Dragon Flash." As he brings his blade down, striking the ground when Tsukumo is 10 feet away, the silver-haired boy must dodge and block as best he can to avoid being struck, but some rocks manage to hit him in the leg and stomach, knocking him to his knees. Their sensei is standing there when they hear a whistle, and they say, "All right, that's enough." The winner of today's Kenjutsu Battle Royal is Naruto. You've all performed admirably as usual, and I believe you're all on the verge of becoming Jonin like me. The three of you nod in appreciation to the man who has been like a father figure to them since they graduated from the academy. With that said, you are all dismissed for the rest of the day, the man says, coughing into his hand. Training you three for the last 7 years has been my distinct honor. You are all incredible shinobi. Oh, and Naruto, happy birthday, the redhead says, rubbing his head in embarrassment. Thank you, Danzo-sensei. Izumi asks the black-haired man, what will you do once we're Jonin-sensei? And he nods. He gives her and the two boys a serious look and says, once you're all Jonin, I'm going back to the Anbu. I am aware that I will never be able to train a better team than this one, but many Jonin would plan to take on another team in my position. They all nod in agreement as he goes on. Now all of you get out of here. Naruto, enjoy your day. His body then flickers away. Plus Anbu missions will help me to keep my skills sharp as I get older, and that's important. Izumi turns to her other male teammate and asks, you think he's finally going to ask out Tsunade-chan? Naruto looks at his teammates and friends and says, well guys, I'll see you later, I have something I have to do. Before they can reply, he disappears in a fire body flicker. So naturally he doesn't see their sly smile. Yeah, he looked like a man on a mission. The boy with silver hair says with a laugh and a nod. However, I've noticed that she's becoming irritated with his procrastination, so I'm wondering who will ask the other out first. They both laugh at this and head off. Body flickering to their homes, she giggles, saying, I'll bet the moment she sees him she'll blow her top and march up to him and tell him he's taking her out on a date. Ground of Training 7. After 5 minutes, Tsunade frowns a little when he sees Naruto in Training Ground 7 wearing his fire body flicker, and he looks around and sees Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru, who are avoiding the blonde as much as possible. Hey Sarutobi-sensei, Aro Jiraiya, Orochi-chan, Tsunade-chan, where are you? They all gesture behind him. Despite the irritated expressions on Jiraiya's and Orochimaru's faces when he calls their names, he turns to face the girl and beams broadly, saying, Hey Tsunade-chan, I've come to walk you home. But as soon as he sees her irate expression, he tilts his head sideways and asks, what's wrong, Tsunade-chan? The blonde approaches him directly in response and asks, what's wrong? I'll explain the situation to you. I've had a crush on you for years, but you've never acknowledged it. I've been waiting for you to ask me something since I turned 12. I've even given you hints, but you've never received any. I'm done waiting. Then, at this, the redhead strikes a contemplative pose and murmurs, what could I have forgotten to ask her? Perhaps I neglected to inquire if Jiraiya was having feelings for her. No, he is more aware of the other 3 men in the vicinity shake their heads and palm their faces in disbelief at his potential folly. But Tsunade keeps getting angrier and eventually loses control, saying, no, you moron. I've been anticipating your proposal. In any case, Tsunade-chan, I came here for more than just walking you home. I wanted to ask if you could make your birthday present to me a date, just the 2 of us. He interrupts, acting as though he didn't even hear her. She goes on as he speaks, adding simultaneously, tonight, you and I are going on a date. But when she simultaneously realizes what he said, her rage subsides. Did you just ask me out on a date? She asks after giving him a long look. Naruto nods his head. Yes, have you just informed me that we are going on a date? He laughs when she nods slowly, saying, I like you, Tsunade-chan, in part because of your assertive personality. Now that we both agree to go out, how about we go home and prepare for our date? At this she squeals like a fangirl and jumps on him, hugging him tightly. Yes, naturally, Naruto-kun, now let's head home. She lets him go and grabs him by the wrist and begins to pull him out of the training ground while saying over her shoulder, by Sarutobi-sensei, Jiraiya Baka, Orochimaru-chan. 3 of Team 7's laughing members were left behind. Later that evening, restaurant Sapphire Dragon. A few hours later, we find the young couple sitting at a candlelit table in one of the best restaurants in Leaf Village. Both of them have dressed up for the occasion, with Naruto wearing a dark blue dress shirt, dark-colored pants, and dress shoes instead of his typical shinobi sandals, and Tsunade wearing a dark green kimono with pictures of trees branching out over it, simple Zori sandals on her feet, her face dusted with the tiniest bit of makeup, and her hair pulled back in a bun on top of her head with traditional Japanese hairpins. She took his arm and he led her out into the village, just walking slowly towards their destination and enjoying each other's company. When they arrived at the restaurant, Tsunade was shocked because it's so popular that reservations must be made months in advance. He asked how he got them in, and he told her that he made the reservation just before her birthday because he'd been planning this for a while. The redhead was speechless when he first saw the gorgeous blonde come down the stairs at their house, as he had never seen a more beautiful sight in his life. As they wait for their food, tonkatsu, a deep-fried pork dish for Naruto, and namru, a fish dish for Tsunade. They sit here staring at each other through the candlelight. Naruto smiles at the blonde and says, sorry it took me so long to ask you out, Tsunade-chan. The blonde shakes her head and says, it's okay, Naruto-kun. The truth is, I realized you had a crush on me just after Itama-san died, he says with a regretful smile. Even though I was starting to think that you'd never realize I liked you or return my feelings. I became enamored with you after I dragged you out of your room and you began to show me affection. It hit me like a ton of bricks. So you like me like I like you? She asks, blushing a little at this. Well, that depends, the redhead replies, laughing at this. What specifically do you like about me? I like you as more than my best friend, she responds, puffing up her cheeks before letting out a breath and nervously fiddling with her fingers. I like you as a girl likes a boy who she wants to be her boyfriend. She keeps her eyes down the entire time, afraid to look at him for fear that he doesn't feel the same way about her, but her worries are unfounded. I like you the same way, Tsunade-chan. She raises her gorgeous brown eyes at this and gives him a bright smile, but the waiter just shows up with their food. Tsunade, with her arm linked to Naruto's, thinks about how wonderful the night has been so far and wishes they could have more nights like this in the future. Naruto, on the other hand, is thinking about the question he's going to ask soon and is hoping that the gorgeous blonde accepts. Finally, the blonde notices that they are walking up an incline and looks back to see the village getting slightly smaller the higher they go as they eat. They discuss what they like about each other, one of which is their desire to be great shinobi. Where are we going, Naruto-kun? She asks, turning to face her red-haired date. I'm taking you to my favorite place in the entire village, the redhead says with an enigmatic smile. I think you're going to love it. She turns her head cutely in confusion, which almost makes him want to kiss her right there, but he restrains himself. But she lets it go and they continue to walk. Eventually, when they get to the top of the incline and it levels off, she realizes where they are. The top of the Hokage mountain. He then surprises her by sweeping her up off her feet and holding her bridal style. Hold on tight, Tsunade-chan. She does just that, wrapping her arms around his neck tightly. I trust you, Naruto-kun. After performing a chakra enhancement jump, he lands on top of the second Hokage's stone head. A moment later, he puts her back on her feet and takes a seat overlooking the village. Tsunade turns to face the village and gasps, it's amazing, isn't it? It's a great view of the entire village, all the lights of the buildings and the people milling about on dates like them or just going to the store or socializing. Naruto smiles at her expression. When I'm struggling with something, I like to come up here because it helps me decompress and the scenery serves as a reminder of why I train so hard. She leans into his side and gives him a soft smile. It's amazing, Naruto-kun, I can see why it's your favorite spot, she says. He nods, saying, I didn't just bring you up here to show you the view. Thank you for sharing this with me. He takes a deep breath and lets it out while staring her in the eyes. Tsunade Senju, would you be my girlfriend? I wanted to ask you something, and it's okay if you need time to think about it for a while, but I realize that we're only 13 years old, but as shinobi our lives could end any time and to not live each moment to the last would be wrong, and I'd like to live the days of my life being with you rather than without you, he says, her eyes widening as she sees the love in his eyes. He is silenced, though, when the blonde kisses him on the lips out of the blue. He is initially startled, but he eventually gets over it and begins kissing her back. Eventually, their need for air becomes too great, and they part ways with the redhead, who remarks, wow. Tsunade laughs at him. I accept. Naru-kun, I'll be your girlfriend. Enough talking now, let's just sit here and enjoy the view together, he says with a happy smile and a nod. He then puts his arm around her shoulders, draws her close to him, and they just cuddle on top of her great uncle's head. Mito and Nawaki are already asleep when they arrive home 2 hours later at midnight, so he leads her to her room, gives her a final kiss, and remarks, I really enjoyed tonight. Good night, Su-chan. She gives him another kiss on the lips and smiles, saying, I also had a good time tonight. I hope that every date we have in the future will be equally unforgettable. After saying, good night, Naru-kun, she goes into her room, shuts the door, leans her back against it, and holds her hammering chest. Naruto turns to go to his own room, but he bumps into Mito, who is dressed in a robe over her pajamas. Well, Naruto-kun, you seem to have had quite the night, the older red-headed person chuckles. Why are you and Nade-chan at home so late, please? Well, I kind of took her up to the heads of the Hokage to show her the village from up there, and we ended up just sitting there looking out of the village and losing track of time, he says, laughing and massaging the back of his head. I apologize, Obasan, and it won't happen again. Mito smiles at this. So there are going to be more dates then? I'll make sure to have her home at a reasonable time on all our future dates. We've all been wondering when you two would get together and begin dating, so that's good. It appears that I won the wager. What do you mean you all have been wondering? He asks, gaping. Did you have a wager on when we would meet up? For what duration has this been occurring? As she continues, yes, we had a bet going about when it would happen, which I just won as I knew it would be when you were just starting your teens. She giggles at his expression and adds, by all I mean myself, most of the clan, Saru-chan, Danzo-chan, hers and your teammates, Kaharu-chan, and even Homura-chan. His mouth drops open at the sight of how many people could tell they liked each other. Good night, Naruto-kun, you should go to bed now. She then leaves him standing in the hallway, shaking his head at the whole situation, and leaves for her own bedroom. After standing for a few minutes, he decides to go to bed because tomorrow is going to be another busy day. He finds several gifts on his desk when he gets to his room, so he gets dressed for bed and then checks to see what he got and from whom he puts on pajama pants, gathers all the gifts, places them on his bed, and then settles down to begin going through them. He starts by going through the gifts from the adults, and from Sarutobi, he received a scroll that contained all the earth jutsu that he is aware of, including some that should only be known by rock shinobi. Kaharu gave him a romance book with the note, to give you some ideas for good dates with Lil Tsunade. He simply shakes his head at the older woman's love of making fun of him. Danzo gave him a pair of trench knives, which are short knives that are attached to his knuckles and through which he can channel his elemental chakra, particularly his wind chakra. Mito gave him a scroll on level 12 Fuinjutsu that her father had written before he passed away from his friends. He got a variety of gifts, starting with a Toad plush toy with the note, "Toads rule, wolves drool," which caused him to shake his head and laugh at the foolishness of the white-haired boy. Orochimaru gave him a scroll about some water jutsu that the boy had discovered on his last mission but was unable to use because he had not yet learned water manipulation. Izumi gave him a scroll listing all the fire jutsu that the Uchiha clan knew, which he knows she likely spent a lot of time copying down at great expense to her own status in the clan because the Uchiha clan doesn't like to share their jutsu. Sakumo gave him a whetstone, sword polish, and a cloth for maintaining his sword. He puts all the gifts aside after opening the last one, putting the ninjutsu scrolls in one of his pouches so he can take them to training in the morning and the trench knives into the storage seals he made on his wrists so he can quickly get kunai and shuriken. He then lies down and goes to sleep, dreaming of a certain blonde-haired, brown-eyed girl who, unbeknownst to him, is also dreaming of him. The Senju house after 2 years ages of Naruto and Tsunade, 15. Our young couple is sitting together on the back porch of the house today, watching Nawaki train in water walking. It has been 2 years since they first met, and aside from the ongoing war, neither of them could be happier than they are now. During the past 2 years, they have gone on numerous dates and have grown closer, and even though they haven't had sex yet, they have done other things. The biggest obstacle in their relationship has been their careers as shinobi, but they have overcome it by virtue of their feelings for one another and the fact that they have gone on a few missions together, turning those into semi-dates by holding little competitions to see who can kill the most kills in a set amount of time and other things. Over the past 2 years, a lot has changed in the village. First and foremost, all members of Teams 7 and 9 have attained the rank of Jonin and are now regarded as the 6 strongest members of their generation. Tsunade's abilities as a kunoichi have significantly improved, particularly in the area of medical ninjutsu, to the point where she is regarded as the best medic nin in the entire village. Izumi is not far behind her and is now regarded as a genjutsu mistress, and the strongest genjutsu user in her entire clan, even surpassing her older cousin Kagami Uchiha. In addition to mastering his bloodlines up to ice release, Naruto is now a level 15 seal master and has learned and mastered both Tobirama Senju and Minato Namikaze's versions of the Hiraishin, though he knows he can still improve it to a higher level, which will require him to visit the Uzumaki clan and learn all of their secret clan jutsu. His wood release is developing slowly, and he can now create trees that are 10 feet tall, but nothing more. Additionally, he revealed his 2 other bloodlines to the blonde by his side. At first, she was surprised and a little angry that he shared her grandfather's bloodline, but she quickly realized that it was foolish for her to be upset with him for something that was beyond his control, so she secretly looked for any notes or information her grandfather had written about the wood release for him, but had not yet found anything. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Sakumo have all grown stronger as well, and the 3 of them are now nearly equal to Naruto individually. The boys have all grown nicely over the past 2 years. Jiraiya is still the tallest at 5 feet 10 and built like a beast, with broad shoulders and large muscles, but not like a bodybuilder. Orochimaru is now 5 feet 6 and still slim and lithe, which makes his snake-style taijutsu much easier to use. Sakumo is now 5 feet 7 and his features haven't really changed other than his silver hair falling down to his mid-back and being tied in a ponytail at the neck. Because he recently used his first 3 bloodlines on a mission to save a team he was leading and kill nearly all the opposing shinobi who had attempted to ambush them, Naruto is already regarded as an A-rank shinobi in the bingo books, especially those of the Rock, Cloud, and Mist villages. He has grown to be 5 feet 8, his red hair has been cut short once more, and his physical features have become more sharp with all hints of fat gone from his face and body, making him probably the most attractive of all the guys. However, Naruto has some news today that will greatly upset his girlfriend. He had hoped to keep the news to himself for a little while longer, but he knows that the present is the best time to share it. Su-chan, there's something we need to discuss, he says, kissing the top of her head that is resting on his shoulder. She sighs contentedly at his kiss, but when she hears his serious tone, she straightens up off his shoulder. What is it, Naru-kun? He sighs as he examines her perplexed expression and realizes that she must be afraid he will tell her that he cheated or something similar. First of all, I want you to know that this isn't about anything negative. I didn't cheat on you and I never will. She smiles, but she's still perplexed. So what's so important that we need to talk about it right now? Suheim? You're the only girl for me. He inhales deeply and exhales before responding, I'm leaving soon. She tilts her head in response, all right, so what if you're heading out on another mission soon? She glares at him, her eyes widening, and he shakes his head, saying, no Suheim, I'm not leaving on a mission, I'm leaving as in leaving the village on reserve for the next 3 years. Why? After 3 years? Where are you going? When would you have told me that you would be leaving me for 3 years? In the final scene, she gets to her feet and screams, drawing the attention of both her brother and her grandmother, who are watching from the doorway. I'm telling you now and you're blowing this out of proportion, the red-headed ninja says, standing with a sorrowful expression on his face. I'm leaving the village for training, but I won't be leaving you for the next 3 years. I'm going to Whirlpool Village to train with my clan and discover my family's secret arts. I get to rediscover a side of myself that I lost when my parents passed away and discover what made them who they were. I thought you of all people would understand that. When she hears this, her expression softens a little, but then she loses her resolve and rushes into his arms, sobbing, I don't want you to go. While you're away for 3 years, what will I do? Without you, how will I manage? The person I love the most in the world is you. I have to go, Su-chan, it's important to me, he says, enveloping her in his powerful arms and massaging the back of her head in shock. He then reaches into his shirt and takes out a 3-pronged kunai that he had specially made in the Land of Iron during one of his weeks off. If you ever get into trouble, just stab this in the ground and I'll be there in an instant no matter how far away I am, he says. While I'm gone, I expect you to continue training and fighting with all you got, and if anything happens then I'm a flash away. Nothing, not even 3 years apart, will ever change how much I love you, Su-chan. As Mito exits the room and says to them, Nade-chan, if you want to blame someone for Naruto's departure, then blame me. She nods and holds the knife close to her chest while wiping away her tears. It was I who recommended that he visit our ancestral home to gain knowledge from our clan. I persuaded Hiruzen to grant Naruto-kun permission to train under them for 3 years after I even wrote a letter to the current clan head and obtained his approval. The blonde shakes her head at her grandmother. I could never be angry at you, Ba-chan. Although I regret Naru-kun's departure, I am confident that it is for the best and that he will return stronger than before. All I want is to make the most of our remaining time together. Naruto gives her another hug and says, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. The two redheads nod at this, so, let's make the most of our remaining 2 weeks. She nods in agreement but giggles, then when I return in 3 years, we can make up for lost time by staying inside for weeks on end making out and doing whatever you want. Nawaki emerges from the training ground and asks, so you're really leaving, Oni-san? I'm going to miss you. Naruto, Oni-san? He nods to the 10-year-old boy and then joins in on the couple's embrace. I'm going to miss you, Waki-chan, he says, patting the boy's head and looking down at him. While I'm away, will you please keep your sister safe? You'll be the head of the household while I'm away, after all. The boy with brown hair nods enthusiastically, saying, of course, Oni-san. The next 2 weeks seem to fly by as the redhead spends time with all of his friends, with Jiraiya and Orochimaru promising to watch over Tsunade for him and make sure she is safe while they are on missions. Sakumo and Izumi tell him that they will miss him but that they will try their best to cover for him when he is away, with Sakumo stating that he wants to have one last Kenjutsu spar with him when he returns. Village of Leafgate to the east. After 2 weeks. The members of Teams 7 and 9, Mito, Nawaki, Kaharu, Danzo and his wife Koyumi and their 3-year-old daughter, Hiruzen Sarutobi and his wife Bawako and their 4-year-old son, as well as Kaharu and Homura, are waiting to bid Naruto farewell as he leaves the Leaf and travels to the hidden Whirlpool village in the land of whirlpools. Well, everything is in order, he says to the group gathered to bid him farewell after completing his checks and feeling content. Everyone laughs at this. I'm going to miss all of you very much, I just hope the old place is still standing when I get back. Sarutobi moves forward and gives him a shoulder clap. Travel safe, Naruto-kun. You'll arrive at a port city on the eastern coast, where your Uzumaki escort to Whirlpool will meet you. He chuckles at this, saying, I'll try not to offend Hiruzen Nissan. Train hard and try not to anger your relatives. It means a lot that you gave me the time off to train with my clan. The man with the brown hair nods and moves on. Danzo comes forward next and shakes his hand, saying, you've done my teachings, proud kid. Safe travels and make sure you come back stronger than before because when you get back I'm going to want an all-out spar with you to test that you haven't been slacking. He smirks at his teacher, saying, "Don't worry Danzo-sensei, when I get back I'll give you a run for your money, no doubt about it." The man nods his head and retreats to his wife and child, followed by Kaharu, who gives him a sisterly hug and says, "You have my word, Nei-chan. I'll make sure to take a shower every night when I can, and I'll eat a healthy diet with the exception of ramen once a month." She nods in agreement and takes a step back. Homura then moves forward and shakes his hand, saying, "I look forward to seeing what kind of shinobi you've become when you return, Naruto-san." He nods at the stiff man as he takes a step back, and then Tsukumo, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru move forward. The four young men then have a group man hug, with Tsukumo being the first to say, "Things won't be the same around here without you, buddy. It'll be a lot more quiet." The other two nod in agreement, and Orochimaru claps his right shoulder, saying, "Your presence will be missed. For all of us, including myself, you have been a wonderful friend and comrade. Now don't a stranger while you're gone, Naruto," Jiraiya says, clapping his left shoulder. "Let us know how things are going by sending us letters through summons." The redhead shakes his head and sighs in frustration as he pushes the other boy away from him. "I will not perv on my clansmen for you, Jiraiya," he says, giggling perversely, "and if you could take some naked pictures of the Uzumaki women and send them to me that would great." Many sigh at the white-haired boy's perversion when he says, "The only woman I want to see naked is Suheim." Tsunade blushes at his second statement, and all the women nearby giggle at her embarrassment. "Goodbye Naruto, I wish you well on your journey," Izumi says, stepping forward to give him a quick, friendly hug. He smiles at her before doing something she detests, rubbing the top of her head and messing up her hair. "Goodbye Izumi-chan." She glares at him but nods nonetheless. "Try to keep Tsukumo in check while I'm gone. We both know that he sometimes overthinks things." Mito then moves forward and gives him a warm embrace, saying, "Goodbye Naruto-kun. Please give my regards to the clan, and as Jiraiya-chan said, don't be afraid to send letter to let us know how things are going." He gives her a similar hug in return and says, "Goodbye, Mito Obaken. Since you took me in without hesitation and raised me in lieu of my parents, you are among the people I will miss the most. You have been like a mother to me in many ways, and I will never be able to repay you for your kindness and love." She nods and smiles at him, then stands up on her tiptoes and gives him a motherly kiss on the brow before backing away. "I'll make sure to give the clan your regards, and I hope that when I return you'll be proud of the man I've become." Naruto frowns as he anticipates Nawaki to be the next to come forward, but the boy remains where he is. "What, no farewell from you, Nawaki-chan? You will really miss me, won't you?" The boy with the brown hair tries not to show emotion, but he sniffs a little and responds, "Of course, Oni-san. I'll miss you, but as the head of the household, I must continue to be strong and unwavering, just as Oni-san always is." The redhead laughs at this, but he straightens up and gives the 10-year-old a salute, saying, "You got it. Senju-san, I am confident that you will take good care of the women." The boy returns the salute, and Naruto bursts into uncontrollable laughter. The most important person in the room steps forward when he stops laughing, and the blonde Kunoichi, without saying a word, throws herself into his arms and gives him a full embrace, accidentally using her new super strength. Naruto, for his part, shows no signs of discomfort and gives her a hug in return. Using every ounce of strength he possesses, the other people choose to leave the young couple alone and move away from them by about 100 feet so they can have privacy. Tsunade says, "I won't tell you not to go. I know this is something you have to do," after a few minutes of embrace. "All I want is to be able to accompany you, but the war makes that impossible. Assure me that the kunai will function when I truly need you." He replies, smiling into her hair, "I wish you could come along as well, but it would be selfish of me to take you away from your teammates, your brother, and your grandmother. Promise me that when you come home for good, you'll still love me as much as I love you. I swear that the instant you stab the kunai into the ground, I will show up to save the day whenever you find yourself in a situation that you don't think will end well. I also swear that my love for you will never fade, regardless of time or distance. Goodbye Naru-kun. I swear to you that I will not allow another man to touch me as long as you are away. That is my vow to you." The blonde says, "Goodbye Naru-kun. I swear to you that I will not allow another man to touch me as long as you are away. That is my vow to you." He nods and smiles, then says, "I'll be sure to send you letters to let you know I'm still thinking of you, Suheim." She smiles brightly at this as everyone else gets back up and he smiles at them all. "Well, this is it," he says, deciding it's time to move forward. "I'll see you all in 3 years, maybe sooner depending on how long my training takes. Goodbye." Everyone the Hokage nods at this, saying, Sarutobi, remember, if the war starts to get too bad, don't hesitate to call me back into service. He then turns and runs out of the gate, hopping up into the trees and disappearing. No one standing there could have predicted that he would return as a certified S-rank shinobi, saving an entire village and nation, and starting to send major ripples throughout the world. Uzu Shiogakure, or Hidden Whirlpool Village. Uzu no Kuni, the land of whirlpools. After 2 years, Naruto is 17 years old. 2 years have passed since Naruto left the Leaf Village to travel at top speed to the port town on the eastern coast of the Land of Fire, where he would find his escort to Hidden Whirlpool, as they were supposed to be there already. After taking a shower and shaving, he used his sensor abilities to find the largest chakra signature in the village that wasn't his. As Uzumaki tend to have large chakra reserves, he found one that was slightly above Jonin level and very powerful near the docks. After putting on his clothes and going to the docks, he discovered a ship with sails that featured the Uzumaki swirl. He met his escort, a man with long, light red hair and violet eyes who was 5 feet 7 inches and had the build of a strong shinobi. His name was Kenshin Uzumaki, and after introducing himself and confirming that he was Naruto Uzumaki, he informed him that they would be departing for the village early the following morning and advised him to get a good night's sleep tonight, as it's difficult to sleep at sea. It took 3 days to reach the village's whirlpools, and when they did, they stopped the ship while Kenshin went to the bow and went through some hand seals, which he watched closely. A moment later, the 2 whirlpools in front of them slowed and then stopped entirely, and they forced their way through. Once they were far enough in, he went to the stern and went through some more hand seals, and the whirlpools returned, just as swift and deadly as before. The Hidden Whirlpool Village itself, which is made up of several high-rise buildings made of what appeared to be granite or cement, caught his attention after that because all he could do was stare in amazement. The village's surrounding countryside is dominated by steep hills, and it appears as though it could compete with any of the major shinobi villages. A wide river runs through the village and is gaped by large bridges made of the same materials as the buildings. As soon as he stepped off the ship, he was greeted by Yushiro Uzumaki, the third and current Azuchage and head of the Uzumaki clan. He was about 6 feet tall, with a solid build, red hair the same shade as his own, and blue eyes. He was dressed in a white robe with light blue accents and a hat with the symbol for whirlpool on the brim. Yushiro welcomed his fellow Uzumaki home with a hug, and everyone in attendance followed suit, cheering and wishing him well. The man then introduced Naruto to his family, including his wife Kunika, a stunning woman with a slim build and a good-sized bust, and their then 1-year-old daughter Kushina, who shares her mother's lighter red hair color. Seeing the child who would eventually become his mother reminded him that his future father was born last year and is likely currently in one of the Leaf orphanage, so he would find Minato Namikaze and adopt him when he returned. Following his mass greeting, Yushiro took him on a tour of the village, showing him the locations of all the major shops, eateries, and even training grounds. He also told him about the history of their clan and the construction of Whirlpool, explaining that every building and training ground in the village was strengthened by seals that were only known to their clan. When Kunika asked him about his romantic life, he replied that he already had a girlfriend in the Leaf who was waiting for him to return. When he revealed her name, Yushiro laughed and said, "History repeats itself. The union of an Uzumaki and a Senju heiress strengthens the ties between the Uzumaki and Senju clans." After he laughed heartily at his slight embarrassment, the topic was dropped, and he was shown to the Azuchage Mansion main house, where he would be staying for the next 3 years with Yushiro and his family. He was surprised to learn that they had more than enough room for him, and that it would also be easier for him to teach the young man all the clan's techniques, especially their fuinjutsu. He thanked the man and his wife for their hospitality, and after settling into the room they provided, which was slightly larger than his room at the Senju house, he joined the family for a lavish feast to celebrate his arrival. He would never forget that first night in Whirlpool because he felt like he belonged there and was welcomed by everyone in the main Uzumaki house. In fact, after observing how much food he could eat, Kenshin, who turned out to be Yushiro's younger brother, remarked, "You are definitely a part of this family." Everyone, including Naruto himself, laughed and agreed with him when he said, "Only an Uzumaki can eat enough food to feed a squad of 4 for a month." He realized he was accepted by his clan at that point, but it became clearer when his training started the following day. He demonstrated why he was regarded as a genius and prodigy in the Leaf from the beginning of his training with the Uzumaki clan, readily absorbing all that was taught to him, including the full history of the clan and the Whirlpool. He particularly enjoyed the fact that the clan could trace their lineage back to the old Six Paths sage, even though none of them knew his name. Among the more tangible things he learned were the main family Kenjutsu style Shigur Soin Ryu, shower in late autumn, blue swallow style, which is handed down from one man to another. In this instance, Kenshin is the current master of it. He has been learning all of the Uzumaki clan's secret water and wind release jutsu and fuinjutsu, where he has excelled the most. Yushiro tested him to make sure he was a level 15 master and then started teaching him the Uzumaki style of Fuinjutsu, which has been harder than all the seals he's learned before, but he has succeeded of course. There are other branches of the style, but the main one is the strongest because only 2 people at a time know it, and each successor develops new techniques to add to it, increasing its power and strength. Naruto continued his training with ice and wood release when he wasn't with Yushiro, Kenshin, or their sister, water mistress Kimiko. A year into his stay in Whirlpool, he finally got past his block on wood release and figured out the ideal ratio of water to earth chakra to create massive forests. Just like the first Hokage naturally, Yushiro had been watching his bloodline training without him knowing, and after witnessing him finally get wood release right, he sent a letter to Mito for all the scrolls written by Hashirama on his techniques for wood release. A week later, he was shocked to be called into the Azukage's office and even more shocked to receive 2 scrolls full of wood release jutsu thanks to Mito. He thanked the man for the scrolls, but he waved him away before giving him another scroll full of ice release jutsu. When questioned about it, he said, "There have been members of the clan throughout our long history that have had certain elemental bloodlines. Ice happens to be one." He then instructed him to return to his training, which he gladly complied. In addition to training, he has developed relationships with both Uzumaki and non-Uzumaki members of the village and has maintained communication with his friends and family in Leaf by sending dire wolf summons along with letters home and then bringing back their responses. As a result, he is aware of the state of the war, the involvement of the Sand Village, and the fact that Tsunade has become the nemesis of the renowned Lady Chiyo of the Puppet Brigade due to her ability to cure all the older woman's poisons. He has also heard how Sakumo has been establishing himself, earning the nickname, the Leaf's White Fang, Konoha no Shiroi Kiba, for his Kenjutsu prowess and chakra saber, while Izumi has earned the nickname, the Leaf's Illusion Blade Goddess, Konoha no Genso Katana Megami, for her proficiency in Genjutsu and her dual Kodachi, which she uses in tandem to trap her adversaries in potent illusions long enough to deliver lethal blows with her blades. Even though Danzo is now the Anbu commander, he has been informed about developments in the Leaf itself. He has read that he and his wife have had a second child, a boy this time. Additionally, he and Tsunade have exchanged letters reaffirming their love for one another. He was a little jealous when he learned that she had been asked out by multiple men since he left, but he was glad to hear that she had declined them all. She recently wrote to him to let him know that Nawaki had graduated from the academy and was assigned to a team with Orochimaru as his sensei. She even included 2 pictures. One of herself, Mito, and Nawaki on the day of the boy's graduation, and another of Orochimaru with the boy and his other 2 students. He is training Kenjutsu with Kenshin once more today, but rather than learning more about Shiger So and Ryu, the man asked him to use his original sword style against him so he could compare the 2 styles. That's precisely what he's doing, and as he does it, he can't help but think about how Nawaki turned 12 yesterday and how he's most likely on the battlefield. Rather than enjoying his birthday with his family, he parries a stab from his fellow redhead while he is thinking this, then jumps back to gain distance and get ready for his next blow. However, before he can do so, he senses a pulse from one of his Hiraishin kunai. Since his mind works at a mile a second, he recognizes that the mark he is sensing is from the kunai he gave to Tsunade. Thinking that this must mean that she is in trouble, he unexpectedly sheaths his sword and disappears in a flash of red before the man can question him about it. The teen is practicing his teleportation technique, so everyone inside notices the red flash and goes outside to see what's happening. Yushiro asks, "Kenshin-kun, what's going on? Why did Naruto-kun suddenly flash away?" after noticing his brother's bewildered expression. The younger gentleman nods his head. "I don't know, Onisama. 1 second we're sparring with our blades and he's preparing his next strike, then the next second he's gone." Sensor Kimiko shuts her eyes in search of the 17-year-old's chakra signature, but she is unable to locate it. His chakra signature is no longer in the village. That means he's flashed back to the mainland. "Do you think this has something to do with his girlfriend Yukoi?" Kunika asks, casting a worried glance at her husband. They all nod and go back inside to wait. After the clan head says, "Yes, it's possible she's in trouble and summoned him to help her. We'll just have to wait for him to flash back to the kunai in his room to find out." Between the land of rock and the land of grass, Naruto appears in a lightly forested area with lots of rock outcroppings and tall grass. He quickly scans the area and finds Nawaki, but he doesn't find Tsunade. He also notices that the boy appears to have set off an explosive trap. Acting swiftly, he leaps into the center of the explosion, hugs the 12-year-old, and then returns to the kunai where he had come from. He can feel the heat from the explosion on his back as the boom reverberates throughout the area, but it quickly subsides. He places the terrified 12-year-old on the ground, rubs his head, and says, "It's okay to open your eyes now, Waki-chan. You're safe. When the boy hears the familiar voice, he slowly opens his eyes and looks up at his savior, tears beginning to form in the corners of his eyes. Naruto Oni-san? He asks. Nodding his head despite the pain in his left knee, the boy lunges at the man's chest, saying, Naruto Oni-san. Oni-chan was right. You did come to save me. Thank you Oni-san. That's right kiddo, you threw the kunai and I came, but right now isn't the time for our tearful reunion. That trap you set off signaled enemy shinobi and they're on their way. From the looks of it your leg is banged up pretty good. Probably from the force of the initial exploding tag. So you need to hide and I'll take care of the bad guys until your team gets here. The brown-haired boy nods as Naruto creates a shadow clone to gently pick him up and hide him in some bushes. He counts 10 of the rock shinobi that encircle the redhead a moment after the clone dispels them. Well, boys and girls, looks like we got ourselves a treat here if it isn't Naruto Uzumaki, the A-rank Jonin of the Leaf. You know, a lot of us been wondering where you been, Brad. You ain't been seen on any of the battlefields, not even the ones with your teammates present. We all figured you'd got scared and hid away. Naruto simply cocks an eyebrow at this, which annoys the man. The man smirks as he recognizes the teenagers. The shorter but stockier man frowns and says, I'm not going to bother asking how you escaped the trap. Your cobalt sand is pretty famous. I'll give you a choice. Surrender to us and be taken for interrogation, or fight and die. Make your choice, boy. So you think you can take all 10 of us at once? What arrogance. Half of us are Jonin and the other half are Chunin. Even if you are a rank you can't take us all, fool. The red-haired man scoffs, causing the 10 of them to laugh. When he is finished, he turns around and walks away from her while calmly saying, Hokuto Shinken. Dan Katsuken. Cutting bone and tendon. A moment later, all of her muscles start to bulge before exploding in a shower of gore, killing her. However, he disappears from their view and then resurfaces in front of the woman who just spoke, hitting her several times before she or her allies can react. They all get a little scared when he does all of this while maintaining a blank expression. But the head Jonin clenches his teeth and says, You little bastard, you'll pay for that. Get him. The others then either use hand seals or draw kunai and shuriken to hurl at him. It appears as though he has been struck as they launch their attacks on him because of the tremendous boom and shock wave caused by the force of the earth techniques. But when the smoke and dust clear, they see a ball of silver-colored sand hovering over the crater they made. Naruto appears completely unharmed as the cobalt sand fades. As his cobalt sand rises high in the air, seemingly increasing in volume, the redhead performs 3 hand seals and utters the words, Magnet Release, Cobalt Waterfall. Jishin. Kobaruto Taki. As a massive wave of metal sand falls upon them by leaping high into the trees. The leader, the other 3 Jonin, and 1 Chunin are able to avoid it, but the other 4 Chunin are not as fortunate and are engulfed by it. Magnet Release. Cobalt Imperial Funeral. Jishin. Kobaruto Koshitsu no Sogi, he says, slamming his hands on the cobalt at his feet. After performing 2 more hand seals, a ripple spreads across the sand, crushing all 5 of the shinobi buried within. In order to store his 3 sands, he retracts the sand and puts it back in one of the seals he has on his back. Normally, I'm a very laid-back man, he says, looking up at the 4 Jonin and 1 Chunin who are in shock. In any other situation, I would have let you go with your lives, but your boasting just irritated me. So here's what I'll do for you. I'll cut you up into little pieces and then send your pieces back to your families. As he releases the water nature chakra from his body into the atmosphere, storm clouds swiftly roll in and it starts to rain. He pulls out his sword as soon as it starts to rain and disappears, emerging in front of the first of the Jonin, a tall, heavily muscled man who is about 4 inches taller than him, 6 feet 4. He rushes him with his sword in both hands as he lets out a burst of water from the blade, then he follows it and thrusts forward while uttering, Shigur Soen Ryu. Shajiku no aim. Axle of Rain. As he kills him by stabbing him in the heart, he takes his blade away from the first man in time to block an impending attack from the second man using a different tactic. Saying, Shigur Soen Ryu. Sakamaku aim. He points his sword downward toward the ground while holding it in only his right hand. As the second man approaches him from above, he spins around to the right on the balls of his feet and swings the sword to its highest point, causing it to bring up a wave of water that shields him from the rock shinobi's kunai. Rolling rain. This causes the man to be sent flying back unbalanced, so he takes the opportunity. He drops his katana and kicks the hilt of it, propelling it forwards at the unbalanced man as he calls out, Shigur Soen Ryu. Yarazu no aim. Last minute rain. As it passes right through his stomach and through his armor. Then he yells, Ice Release, Ice Dragon Jutsu, while going through hand seals. Hyeten. Koriryu no Jutsu. as the water from the rain comes together to form a large dragon which then freezes over into white ice, and lunges at the third man who barely has time to scream before he's turned into a bloody ice sculpture. Then he calmly walks over to man number 2 and removes his sword, swiping the blood off of it, and as he does so the remaining Chunin looks to her leader. He's a demon. Daisuke, let's get the hell out of here because we can't defeat him. Jonin, the main character, gulps at how one man eliminated 8 of them in 5 minutes as if they were insignificant. Then Daisuke shakes his head, saying, Kana, we can't do that. The Tsuchikage will put us to death for cowardice if we turn tail and flee until the day we die. We must fight. She reluctantly nods. Let's attack him together. But before they can act, he yells, Bringer of Darkness Jutsu. Kokwangyo no Jutsu. Their world abruptly darkens to the point where they are unable to see their hands in front of their faces. They are unaware that this portends their demise. After using the darkness genjutsu on the last 2 rock shinobi, the redhead casually sheaths his sword, pulls out 2 kunai, and tosses them at each of them. He hits his target as the kunai embed themselves in their throats, killing them. He then moves to the bush and extracts Nawaki while the boy looks on in amazement, saying, Wow, Oni-san, you're really strong. You eliminated all 10 of those men without exerting any effort. It was nothing, Nawaki-kun, he says, shaking his head at the 12-year-old. Your sister or Orochimaru could probably do something similar. Speaking of which, I must leave because I feel old. Pale skin approaching. The boy with the brown hair frowns and asks, But why Oni-san? Why do you not stay and accompany us back to the village? My training with the Uzumaki clan isn't finished yet, Naruto says with a gentle smile and a head rub. I can't go back home until then, but if you want to tell Orochimaru, Su-chan, Ero Jiraiya, Sakumo, Izumi, Danzo-sensei, Kaharu-ne, Hiruzen-ni, and Mito Obaken that I saved you, go ahead but don't let anyone else know, okay? Reluctantly, the boy nods as the redhead returns the kunai he used to call him, smiles one last time, takes a step back, and vanishes in another flash of red. The pale-skinned man kneels in front of him as Orochimaru and his 2 teammates approach him a moment later. Nawaki-kun, are you okay? I warned you not to leave before us. I'm sorry, Orochimaru-sensei, I got too excited, the boy says, looking down in embarrassment. I believe that the explosion trap caused me to hit a tree branch too hard and break it up, but other than that, I'm fine. My knee hurts a lot. Why did it take you all so long? He asks. We were attacked by a group of sand nin, and the black-haired man responds with a sigh of relief. Although it took some time, we were able to defeat them. I'm happy you're all right. He turns to face his other 2 students after hearing his female student, a girl with blue hair, yell, Orochimaru-sensei, you should see this. His eyes widen as he sees the bodies of the 10 rock shinobi. He notices the mangled corpses of 4 of them, the stab wounds of 2, the frozen remains of 1, and the slit throats of the remaining 2. However, it is only when he sees the exploded corpse of the first woman that was killed and by whom. Nawaki-kun, what happened here? He asks, turning back to his Senju pupil. These rock shinobi were killed by whom? The brown-haired boy smiles and gestures for him to approach, which he does. The boy whispers in his ear, Naruto Oni-san. Orochimaru's eyes widen at this, but he nods his head, confirming his theory. He then gently picks the boy up and turns to his other students, saying, Let's get back to the leaf. Nawaki-kun needs immediate medical attention for his knee. He makes one-handed seals and creates a mud clone with instructions to burn the bodies before the 4 hop off into the trees and return to the leaf. Village of Whirlpool. After 6 months. 6 months have passed since Naruto flashed into an explosive trap and saved Nawaki's life. After cleaning up and returning to his room, he went downstairs to explain his disappearance to Yushiro and the family, who understood and were pleased that he had saved his future brother-in-law. He was then ordered to spend the remainder of the day off training, playing Go and Shogi with Kenshin and Yushiro, respectively. A few days later, he received a letter from Tsunade, in which she thanked him for saving her baby brother and promised to give him a special gift the next time she saw him. In addition, she wrote that Nawaki's knee was completely broken by the initial shockwave from the explosion, so much so that not even she could mend it. He would be able to walk and get an artificial kneecap, but his shinobi career was ruined because he would not be able to do any kind of intense training or missions, and thus his dream of becoming Hokage. Ironically, the boy took it well and said that he was just happy to be alive. Naruto simply smiled at the 12-year-old's optimism and replied that he was happy to be able to help Nawaki. The redhead has been putting a lot of effort into his training over the past 6 months. He saw his incapacity to protect Nawaki from harm as a weakness in his Hiraishin and worked to improve the seals and the speed of his warps. He has also dedicated himself to learning and perfecting every Uzumaki secret technique. Finally, he has worked tirelessly to master the wood and ice release techniques from the scrolls he was given. 4 months ago, Yushiro and the Alpha of the Dire Wolves allowed Naruto to sign a second summoning contract with the Summon Clan of the Uzumaki, the Elemental Dragons. A month after accepting the offer to learn Senjutsu and become the first Dire Wolf Sage, he was reverse summoned to the Dire Wolf Dens, where he spent the entire month learning how to gather natural energy on the go and achieving Sage Mode now. When he enters Wolf Sage Mode, Okami Senin Moto, his eyes develop red eye shadow, turn gold, and his pupils become slits, his teeth and nails sharpen slightly, and his appearance becomes more untamed and wild. 2 months ago, Naruto finally perfected his own version of Hiraishin, which enables him to warp much faster and farther than even Minato's version. Last month, he created a mass transit version of Hiraishin, which is intended to transport large groups from one place to another. Using the Uzumaki seal formulas to test it, he applied the mass transportation seal to the Azucage Tower's massive basement, then sent the opposite seal to the Leaf via Dire Wolf, requesting that Mito apply it to the Hokage Tower. After confirming that Mito had applied the opposite seal, he chose to test it on a group of his clones. He created 15 shadow clones and had them stand on the seal, which, when activated by his chakra, flashed them away. A few minutes later, the clones vanished, and he realized that the seals were effective. Tsunade wanted to teleport immediately to Whirlpool, but he shot her down and informed her that the seals were to be used in the event of an emergency to transport all of Whirlpool's civilians, including the children, to Leaf until the emergency would occur within the month. Today is just like any other day in the Whirlpool, with the sun shining, a pleasant breeze coming in from the sea, and everyone going about their daily lives. Naruto is playing with Kushina, Yushiro's now almost 3-year-old daughter, on the porch of the main house. He was 6 feet 0 inches 6 months ago, but he is now 6 feet 1 inch with a swimmer's build, built for speed, but with explosive power behind his arms. He has allowed his hair to grow out even more than before. It now resembles Minato, but the back is longer, much like Jiraiya, and he keeps it tied in a spiky ponytail at the back of his neck, just like his friend Tsukumo. He is currently tickling Kushina Uzumaki mercilessly while her parents watch from the side with smiles on their faces. Kunika turns to her husband and says, "He's really good with her, don't you think? She's a little bundle of energy, always running around and getting into things." She stands 2 feet tall and as chubby as most 3-year-olds are, and her red hair is down to her shoulder blades and just as beautiful as he remembers it being when she matured her. The man nods his head, that he is. Even the children in the village look up to him and call him Iniki, which makes her smile broadly. He seems to have a way with kids. Before she can say anything more, though, a Whirlpool Jonin kneels in front of them and says, "Azukage-sama, I bring bad news." Naruto stops playing with Kushina, who frowns, but Yushiro looks serious and asks, "What is the situation?" Naruto interrupts and asks, "Has the enemy been confirmed?" The Jonin, taking that as his cue, responds, "The whirlpools have been breached and a large force of ships is heading straight for us. There are at least 600 ships and 200 of each are flying the flags of rock, cloud, and mist." The Jonin gives him a foolish look before turning to face his leader, who nods and instructs him to respond to the young man. In response, Yushiro clicks his tongue and says, "Damn, it looks like even in the midst of war the great nations band together to attack a nation they deem lesser than them." Naruto shakes his head and continues, saying, "Actually I think it's more likely they've entered into a temporary alliance to destroy Whirlpool in an effort to get rid of the Leaf's greatest allies." The Azukage nods and turns back to the Jonin, asking, "How long until they make landfall?" "Azukage-sama, about 2 hours, the man says, bending his head. "What orders do you have?" "Send out the word to all forces, tell them to assemble and prepare for battle," the man says, rising to his full height. The man responds, "Yes, Azukage-sama. I want one company to gather all the civilians, the children, the elderly, and any sick or injured and get them to the teleportation seal in the Azukage Tower and send them to the Leaf for safety. Make sure one Jonin goes along with them to inform the Hokage of the situation." After Naruto takes over, he says, "Make sure the group in charge of the civilians knows that the seal can only teleport 200 people at a time. Any more and the seal will become unstable and blow up." The Jonin nods gravely, then disappears to follow instructions. Yushiro asks Naruto, "What are you doing, Naruto?" as he enters the house and makes his way to his room. The young man gives him a look and responds, "Don't tell me I can't or shouldn't. I'm preparing for battle. I will stop at nothing to keep this village safe because it is my second home and this clan is my family." The older man backs off, but he nods his head in agreement. "Very well, then suit up," he says. "It will be my honor to fight alongside a fellow Uzumaki like you, Naruto-kun, if we die tonight." Naruto gives him a smile and goes to his bedroom, while Yushiro leads Kunika and Kushina to the Azukage Tower after gathering a few items. beyond the gates of Whirlpool Village after 1 hour and 30 minutes. More than an hour later, everything is ready for the battle. The entire Whirlpool Shinobi force, which is approximately 5,000 strong, is positioned around the outer gate. The three most powerful members of the Uzumaki clan, the third Azukage Yushiro Uzumaki, the swordsman of Bloody Rain, Kenkaku no Baradi Aim, Kenshin Uzumaki, and the wolf sage Naruto Uzumaki, are at the head of this force. Behind them, but hidden from view, is a barrier that surrounds the village. It is designed to prevent anyone from entering until the three men at the front of the army are dead because it is tied to one of their chakra signatures. The evacuation is still ongoing inside the village. At this point, 70% of the non-combatant members have been teleported to the Leaf, where Sarutobi has been informed of the situation and has responded that he is sending backup and to wait until they can transport over. The shinobi force. Men and women are waiting for the 600 ships to land and release their forces when they spot 6 shinobi traveling quickly from the ocean. As they approach, they see that these 6 are dressed in chakra shrouds and recognize them as one man yells, "Jinchuriki." Jinchuriki was sent. Everyone gets fearful at this. However, Naruto rushes forward to meet the 6 Jinchuriki, ignoring Yushiro's scream of, "Naruto, get back here. You can't handle them by yourself." When he reaches the 6 shinobi, they yell, Hokage-style 60-year-old technique. Enclosed hermitage, entering society with bliss-bringing hands. He switches into sage mode while running, then makes 5 clones, all of whom pass through the same hand seals as they each rush 1 Jinchuriki at a time at maximum speed. Kakuon Nitten Suishu is a Hokage Shiki Juinjutsu. As soon as they finish speaking, 10 wooden pillars appear all around each Jinchuriki, surprising them and enabling all 6 Narutos to touch them before hopping back and leaving a chakra trail that connects them to the 6 Jinchuriki. At that moment, all 6 of them simultaneously exclaim, "Sit," as soon as the kanji for the word, "sit," appears on their right hands. All 6 Jinchuriki discover that their tailed beast's chakra is vanishing as the pillars drain the demonic chakra, leaving them feeling weak and bewildered because they are unable to call the chakra back. However, they don't have much time to think about it because the redhead and his clones knock them out in a flash. After he obtains the 5 scrolls from his clones, they all poof away, and he flashes back next to Yushiro, who looks at him with respect and pride. However, Naruto surprises him more when he asks, "Azukage-sama, if you wouldn't mind." The 6 men and women are then sealed into storage scrolls that have stasis seals on them, putting them into status to be killed, ransomed off, or just released later when the enemy lands. Will you and everyone else here be able to hold back? I've been wanting to test something for a while, but I haven't had the opportunity, and now seems like the best time to do so. Yushiro gives him a crazy look and says, "Definitely not. Thousands are too much for one man to handle alone." The younger redhead shakes his head, saying, "I'm not going to throw my life away. Yushiro Ojisan, I don't know what you're planning, but it's not worth throwing your life away." He pulls out a scroll and throws it to the closest battalion leader, saying, "See that every man and woman here gets at least 2 of what's in that scroll." The man gives him a curious look before turning to the Azukage for approval. "If it makes you feel better, you and the others can be a part of it." Looking perplexed, the older redhead asks, "What's in that scroll, Naruto-kun?" Naruto grinned and said, "I've sealed thousands of my Hiraishin Kanai in that scroll. As soon as the enemy forces begin to attack, I want every member of this army to toss them into them." After hearing that, the man nods his head to the Jonin and distributes all of the tri-pronged Kanai to the force, saying, "It doesn't matter if they hit anyone or not, it won't interfere with my plan." The 600 enemy ships land 20 minutes later, their fronts open, and hundreds of shinobi pour out, forming into battalions of 500 each, moving into nice straight lines, and staying with their own comrades. Once they are all together, the leaders of each battalion give the order to attack, and they start to move forward, first walking, then running. As they are 1,000 feet away, Yushiro orders his men and women to throw to the Kanai, which they do, causing 10,000 tri-pronged Kanai to rain down on the 60,000 enemy shinobi. While the cloud shinobi dodge or block with their own Kanai or swords, the mist shinobi summon up walls of water to protect themselves, and the majority of the rock shinobi summon rock walls to block the weapons. When it's over, thousands of tri-pronged Kanai are scattered all around them, killing about 1,000 of each of their forces, making 3,000 shinobi dead. By the rain of Kanai, they lower their defenses and resume their advance. Naruto smirks at this, salutes his allies, and disappears in a flash of red. A moment later, there's another flash of red in the middle of the battlefield, and an entire battalion of mist shinobi falls dead, slashed to death. Then, a fourth flash appears, and an entire battalion of rock shinobi is run through with spikes of ice. After that, it's complete chaos. with flashes of red appearing all over the battlefield and battalion after battalion being killed by the time everyone regains their composure and decimated 20 battalions. When they see another flash of red, they turn to face the source and discover one Uzumaki standing there with his sword over his shoulder and a feral expression on his face. All of the Uzumaki shinobi can only marvel at the young man's skill with his teleportation jutsu, but what he does next shocks not only his fellow Uzumaki but also all of the enemy shinobi, instilling in them a fear of kami. Sheathing his sword, he performs 3 hand seals before clapping his hands together and uttering the words, Sage Art. Wood Release Secret Technique. Nativity of a World of Trees. Senpo. Mokuton Hajutsu. Jukai Koden. As soon as he shouts it, tree roots start to grow out of the ground and quickly grow into enormous trees. He then uses the tree's roots and branches to attack the enemy shinobi. Many try to avoid them or build defenses, but the branches are too strong and quick to be impaled, and in a matter of seconds, half the coast is covered in dense forest. The drawback is that a quarter of their remaining forces are killed, impaled on tree branches, or suffocated by roots. He uses up the natural chakra he collected with that technique and continues to run on full with his own chakra, which at this point is almost equal to Sarutobi's current chakra levels. After he ends the jutsu, his sage markings fade away. He smirks as he cuts his finger and runs eye over the tattoo, saying, "Time to run wild Ryoshu." Then he yells, summoning jutsu, while slamming his right hand to the ground, as a huge puff of smoke envelops him, and a moment later everyone hears a loud, HOWWWWLLLL. Then the smoke clears, revealing the redhead perched atop a massive wolf's head. Ryoshu, the alpha of the pack and the boss of the dire wolves, is a 60-foot-tall, dark black-furred wolf with large teeth and slitted red eyes. When he smells blood and death in the air, the great wolf gives a predatory smile that looks extremely frightening on his muzzle and looks up at his head. Involved in a battle in Naruto? The redhead laughs at this, saying, "It wasn't easy. I used up all my nature chakra to do that wood release jutsu. It looks like you've already taken care of more than half of their number. Now that there aren't many left, I thought I'd call you and let you enjoy yourself, Ryoshu." At this, the alpha wolf laughs and says, "I guess I could use a snack. Let's go crazy now." The carnage the dire wolf unleashes is unlike anything the Uzumaki clan and the Mist, Rock, and Cloud shinobi have ever witnessed. Ryoshu shrugs off most of the enemy shinobi's attacks, using his thick fur as armor, but eventually he starts to run out of chakra and growls to Naruto to let him know they're going to launch one last attack. The 17-year-old yells, "Fire Release, Great Fire Destruction." While running through hand seals, Kaden, Goka Meshitsu, as he unleashes an enormous stream of fire from his mouth, Fenrir pauses, releases it, and exclaims, "Wind Release, Howling Wind." Futon. Haoringu Fu. As they say together, Collaboration Jutsu. Wolf Flame Obliteration. A massive gust of hot wind is released, combining with the flames from Naruto's jutsu to form a massive wave of white-hot flames in the shape of a wolf's head. A sizable contingent of enemy shinobi are reduced to ashes as the wave of flames sweeps over them. Kanbai Jutsu. Okami Hano Hisoku. When the attack is over, Naruto flashes to one of his kunai as Ryoshu puffs away, creating a smokescreen, and then he flashes back next to Yushiro, killing about another 3,000 enemy forces. As the smoke clears, the remaining men and women realize that retreating is the better part of valor, and they all turn around and run back to their ships, but not before some of them turn and burn the bodies of their fallen comrades to avoid leaving any secrets behind. As the 3 ninja village retreat, they remember the face of the man who defeated their invasion of the Whirlpool village by himself. The 17-year-old boy's ability to defeat a 60,000-strong army composed of 3 different shinobi villages, including their Jinchuriki, without exerting any effort is astounding to all of the Whirlpool shinobi. However, after a short while, everyone in the area starts applauding and chanting his name so loudly that even the enemy ninjas' retreating ships can hear it. Naruto, for his part, can only scratch the back of his head in shame and beg them to stop cheering. As the younger of the 2 brothers remarks, "That boy is quite a shinobi, Onisama. His power and skill is up there with the greatest of shinobi. I dare say he's stronger than you. After all, even you with all your power could have only killed a quarter of their number before running dry on chakra and being killed." Kenshin and Yushiro stand back from the action with joyful but shocked smiles on their faces. As he responds, "You're right there, Ototo, but most of the work was done via his warping technique as well as Senjutsu enhanced wood release bloodline." The enemy was not expecting to come up against a member of the Uzumaki clan who could teleport all over in an instant, let alone use the wood release of the first Hokage. They watch as their men and women pick up the teenager and throw him in the air, then catch him while he protests with a smile, and they can't help but smile. All of the shinobi are back in the village, celebrating with food and drink when the reinforcement from Leaf, led by Tsunade, Sakumo, and Danzo, arrives via the teleportation seal in the Azukage Tower. Naru-kun, what's going here? Why is everyone sitting here partying when an enemy force is out there waiting to attack? Tsunade asks as he is patted on the back by several Whirlpool shinobi. Right in the middle of the party when he hears her voice and looks up to see the stunning blonde. He jumps up to his feet, walks over to her, and pulls him into a passionate kiss, which causes many Whirlpool and Leaf Ninja to wolf whistle. As for the blonde, all she can do is melt into his arms and give him a passionate kiss in return. When they separate for air, Tsunade is smiling despite being a little dazed. The red-headed person sighs contentedly, saying, Suheim, gods, how I've missed you. To answer your question, the invasion is over. Rock, Mist, and Cloud all turned tail and ran after over 80% of their forces were decimated within an hour and a half. The eyes of all the Leaf Shinobi, including Danzo and Sakumo, widen when they hear this, as they survey all the Whirlpool Shinobi and find not even a drop of blood on their clothing, let alone signs of exhaustion on their faces. Danzo approaches his former pupil and asks, how did you all accomplish that? From what I can see, it doesn't even look like any of the men or women here even saw battle. Yushiro then approaches, claps Naruto on the shoulder, and responds, it was all because of Naruto-kun here. Using a combination of Senjutsu, Hiraishin, Wood Release, and summoning, he managed to completely surprise and overwhelm the enemy forces, all this in only a bit over an hour. Every Leaf Shinobi are shocked to learn Senjutsu. Naruto on the other hand simply rashes his head in, stop Yushiro Oji-san, you're making a bigger deal out of what I did than you need to. I'm sure that the result would have been much better if you and Kenshin-sensei fought alongside me and we would have sent half as many running home. The man shakes his head in disbelief. As strong as Kenshin and I are, we could never have done as you did. If we had tried, we would have ended up getting overwhelmed and running out of chakra and would now be dead. You are a shinobi on a whole other level, and what truly fills me with hope is that you're still young, you still have room to grow even more powerful. Sakumo approaches the younger redhead and strikes him in the shoulder, saying, you baka. You couldn't wait for us to get here and leave some Rock, Cloud, and Mist shinobi for us? You're so selfish, old buddy. The slightly shorter man also smiles. Naruto observes that both his friend and his love have grown as much as he has. Even though Tsunade has only gained about 2 inches in height and is now 5 feet 3 inches, but her bust has grown even more, becoming a DD cup, and she now wears her hair down her back in 2 tight pigtails. Sakumo's silver hair defies gravity more than before, and he now stands a respectable 5 feet 10. While Danzo chooses to send off a hawk summon with a message for Sarutobi that the threat had passed and that he should speak with Mito regarding Naruto's connection to the first Hokage, the Leaf Shinobi choose to join the Whirlpool Shinobi in their celebration after they have recovered from their shock. 2 parties are held that evening to celebrate the victory over Mist, Rock, and Cloud. One in the Whirlpool and another in the Senju compound in the Leaf, where all of the elderly, children, and civilians are spending the night. They had no idea that the young man who defeated 50,000 men and women would make a new entry in the bingo books in just a few weeks. Even though both of them want to take their relationship to the next level, Tsunade manages to maintain control of the situation by wanting to save that specific act for when he returns to the Leaf. The night is simply spent in joy and celebration as Naruto catches up with his girlfriend, and they spend the entire night cuddling and making out. Rather, they settle for snuggling in his bed and dozing off in each other's arms. All of the residents of Whirlpool went back to their regular lives the following day, while the Leaf Shinobi made their way back to the Leaf before teleporting away. Naruto and Tsunade shared a final kiss, with the blonde telling him, see you in 6 months, Naru-kun. The redhead nodded his head but leaned in close to her, whispering in her ear, you should think about taking some time and going to the home of the slugs to learn Senjutsu, Su-chan. I guarantee you won't regret it. Following that, everything returned to normal on the island and in the village, and Naruto kept up his training in an effort to get stronger than before. The new bingo books from every nation were delivered to Whirlpool a week after the invasion, and Yushiro was looking through them when he discovered that every single one of them had the same entry. With the exception of the Leaf, as the entry was about Naruto. The man showed it to his family over dinner. Each book featured a picture of him with his long red hair blowing in the wind, his leaf forehead protector proudly displayed on his forehead, and his blood-stained sword on his shoulder. The following are the red entries in the books. Naruto Uzumaki is his name, 17 years old, height, 6 feet 1 inch or 185.9 centimeters. Weight. Not specified. Clan. A Whirlpool member of the Uzumaki clan. The Leaf's bloody crimson flash serves as the epitaph, Konoha no Chimamire no Shinku Senko. Lava, boil, magnet, ice, and the legendary wood release bloodline of the first Hokage are among their bloodlines. Naruto Uzumaki is a tall young man with the characteristic red hair of his clan. He is characterized by his dark red vest with fur around the neck and hem that displays an image of a wolf howling at a silver moon on the back. He wears clothing in shades of red and silver. Ability Ninjutsu. Level of Kage Jonin level, assumed, in Genjutsu. Level of Kage in Kenjutsu. Kage level in Taijutsu. Kage level in Fuinjutsu, presumed because of Uzumaki ancestry. Jonin level in Bukajutsu. 10 million Ryo are either dead or alive on the rock, 10 million are alive on the cloud, 10 million are dead or alive on the mist, 5 million are dead on the sand, and 1 million are dead on the rain. Position. S special request. Run away. If you are not a Kage or Kage level shinobi, do not participate. 50,000 rock, cloud, and mist shinobi were killed in the failed invasion of Whirlpool Village by Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto could only laugh to himself after reading that because it appears he has become the first flash of the leaf, and a bloody red one at that. The funniest thing is that, despite being one of the few shinobi in history to receive a flea on sight order, similar to his future father, he hasn't even recovered half of the power he possessed in his previous timeline. He still has a long way to go before he can regain his tailed beast mode, unlock the Rinnegan and train with it, and then regain the Six Paths Sage mode. Kimiko teased him after he had moved past the fact that he was now a certified S-rank shinobi, stating that he would most likely do something to ruin his enigmatic and solemn S-rank status. However, Kenshin stopped this and declared that it was time to resume training and learning the final two Shigur Soin Ryu attacks, which he had invented when he succeeded his master. In order to continue the Shigur Soin Ryu training, they went back out. After 6 months' day of leaf return, Naruto's final 6 months in Whirlpool seemed to go by quickly. Even though he still prefers his hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, which he has also perfected, Naruto put his nose back on the grindstone and intensified his training even further after the invasion. He learned the last 2 techniques of Kenshin's Shigur Soin Ryu and then created 3 more forms of his own. He also learned both of the succession techniques, including Kuzuryusen, 9-headed Dragon Flash, which is the second most powerful attack in the style because it simultaneously targets all 9 vital points in the body. He also learned the ultimate succession technique, the Amikakeru Ryu no Hirameki, Heaven's Soaring Dragon Flash, which is the most potent attack in the hidden Mitsurugi Ryu because it surpasses God's speed. It does this by placing your left leg in front of your right leg at the very end of a Badojutsu attack before drawing your sword. The air is displaced from the force and power of the blocked strike in such a way that it creates a vortex that pulls the opponent in for a second blow. Even if the first blow is accidentally blocked, the second blow then accelerates itself by using the force that was stored up from the first. Additionally, he has perfected all of the Uzumaki clan Fuinjutsu, even refining a few of them, and has given Yushiro his notes to use and pass on to future generations of Uzumaki, including his own daughter. He also mentioned to the man that he and his wife ought to have another child so that Kushina would have a sibling, since it is never enjoyable to be an only child. But today, as everyone has gathered to bid him farewell, the 18-year-old is standing outside the village's gates, getting ready to return to his first home. Wearing a blue kimono and hakama pants with whirlpools all over them, he led the sizable throng in the Azukage himself. It has been a pleasure to have you here, Naruto-kun. Under normal circumstances I would try to convince you to stay and take your place as a member of the clan, but I know your heart is in the leaf with Tsunade. All I can do is to thank you for all you have done for the village, and to tell you that you carry the Uzumaki name proudly, Yushiro says after stepping forward and giving the young man a firm embrace. The younger red-headed man bows his head in appreciation. Thank you for your words, Yushiro Oja-san. Thank you for taking me in and accepting me as a true Uzumaki. Thank you for all the training and life lessons you have bestowed upon me. Most of all, thank you for having faith in me 6 months ago, and not treating me like a child for my crazy idea. I will always remember my time here and look back on it fondly, and this will always be my second home. However, I must return to my real home, to my friends, and to the love of my life. The 3-year-old cries, "No go Ruto ni." He simply rubs her head and smiles at her, saying, "Don't worry, Shina-chan, we'll see each other again sooner or later. You be a good girl for your Ka-san and Tu-san." He then addresses the mother, saying, "Thank you for your care and great meals these last 3 years, Kunika Oba-san." The woman nods her head, smiles, and moves away. "Well, I'm off. Goodbye everyone. I hope all of you remain healthy, happy, and safe," he says, turning to face the entire village. "Goodbye Naruto. Come back soon," is chanted by the entire village. The teenager gives the main family one last glance, smiles, and says, "Sayonara watashi no kazoku." Goodbye my family, before vanishing in his typical red flash. A few minutes after he departs, everyone starts to return to their daily activities, Leaving only Yushiro and Kenshin standing at the gate. They exchange glances because they both know that the teenager will become even more famous in the future, and the Azukage secretly believes that Naruto will become the fourth god of shinobi. Yandaime Shinobi no Kami. Port Town, the land of fire's eastern coast. After a second, when Naruto emerges in all his glory from the port town he left 3 years ago, there is a flash of red at the docks, frightening the dock workers and fishermen to death. He looks around and gives the locals an apologetic smile before his body immediately flickers away and reappears outside the town's gate, where he hops into the trees and takes off at his current top speed in order to flash anywhere in the eastern half of the land of fire when necessary. He is placing Hiraishin seals on the trunk of one tree every 10 kilometers as he dashes through the trees, invisible to the naked eye. After 2 days, Eastern Gate of Leaf Village, the redhead eventually arrives at the gate he left 3 years ago after 2 days of traveling at cage-level speeds. He speeds through and begins roof hopping to his first house and the 3 people who are most important to him in the world after realizing that he arrived during the guard change. Pervert. There's a white-haired pervert peeking on women in the HOTSPRINGS. He yells, stopping and grinning as he notices a familiar head of spiky white hair peeping on the woman's side as he hoops by some hot springs. He immediately hides and observes what happens after shouting this. For his part, Jiraiya searches everywhere but is unable to locate the source of the yell that just revealed his secret. He doesn't have much time to look, though, because he hears knuckles cracking behind him. He turns to see all the women he was just glancing at, all of them with angry expressions on their faces and towels wrapped around their bodies. He giggles nervously. Now ladies, let's not do anything we're going to regret later. It was just a little harmless look. I didn't even see all that much. He screams like a girl as the group of irate women, which includes a few kunoichi, ignore him and yell, "Die pervert." As they start beating the living hell out of him after they're finished, they all sniff and go back inside to get dressed while he lies in a bloody mess in a crater. A few moments after they leave, Jiraiya miraculously gets up unharmed, dusts himself off, and says, "I swear when I find who blew my cover they'll pay." He then huffs and trots off, while Naruto is up in a tree that is hidden away, laughing so hard that his sides hurt. However, he calms down after a short while and chooses to proceed to the Senju compound. Main house of Senju. After 5 minutes the redhead finally makes it to his first house 5 minutes after having a good time at the expense of his white-haired friend. When he closes his eyes and feels the chakra signatures inside, he recognizes 4 signatures, 3 of which belong to the Senju family. But the 4th one makes him smile even more because it's that of his female teammate. Without further ado, he opens the door, enters, silently closes it behind him, removes his sandals, and proceeds silently down the hall to the family room to further reduce noise. He places his sword and his pouches close to the stairs on the way. He smiles as he approaches the family room's doors and hears the 4 people inside chatting, laughing, and having a good time. However, as soon as he jerks the sliding doors open, his expression quickly changes to one of calm. The abrupt opening of the doors startles the people inside, and when they look toward the doorway, they are even more startled by who they see entering the room. The redhead murmurs, "I'm home, Obaken. Nawaki-kun, Su-chan." With a broad smile on her gorgeous face, Tsunade is the first to emerge from their shock. She rushes up to embrace him, saying, "Welcome home, Naru-kun, we've missed you." He puts his arms around her and kisses the top of her head when the blonde lets him go. Nawaki stands up and hobbles over to him. The 13-year-old boy with brown hair hugs him and says, "Welcome home, Naruto Oni-san." He examines him and remarks, "Oni-san, you should cut your hair because it's almost as long as Ero Jiraiya's." Laughing, Naruto says, "I'll think about it, Nawaki-kun." Then again, it depends on whether or not Su-chan likes it long. After examining the boy, he remarks, "You've gotten taller, Nawaki-kun. Also, I see that you're hobbling around due to a false kneecap. I want to say sorry to you for not getting to you faster." His statement is accurate because the boy has grown over the past year. He was 4 feet 7 when he was saved, but is now 5 feet 0 inches. Additionally, the brown-haired boy apologizes by waving, letting him know that he still doesn't hold him responsible. The redhead then approaches the elderly Mito, who is now in her 60s, and kneels down to give her a gentle embrace. The woman pats his back and says, "Welcome home, Naruto-kun. Your presence in this house has been missed." Naruto says, "Thank you, Mito Obasan, not only for welcoming me back, but for sending these scrolls to Whirlpool for me to learn from. They were a great help, and while I haven't mastered all the jutsu yet, I have learned every last one." She gives them back and gives him a nostalgic smile while nodding. He then turns to Izumi, who he now realizes has grown significantly over the past 3 years. She is 5 feet 4 and slightly taller than Tsunade, with a very feminine, slender build from years of training. Her black hair is now cut to her shoulder blades, and the front is Heim cut. Her black eyes have become somewhat lifeless, but her breasts have solidified into a D cup because he has witnessed it in the eyes of Sasuke Uchiha, his former best friend who is now his enemy. He is able to determine that it is a result of the Mangekyo Sharingan's deterioration. Good to see you, Izumi. I hear you've been keeping busy and getting stronger. I'm happy for you, Genjutsu mistress, but your eyes don't look so good. He pats her shoulder and smiles at his teammate. She slaps him on the chest and frowns at his final remark. She then chooses to respond to his remarks, saying, "It's good to see you as well, Naruto. I've been doing my best to stay busy and have gotten a lot stronger. Thank you for the praise on my Genjutsu abilities, and my eyes are fine." In response, he frowns and produces a smoke-free shadow clone, which seizes her by both shoulders and body flickers off with her. His clone talks to Izumi about the Mangekyo, how she got it, and how to cure the encroaching blindness, while the rest of the room looks at him funny as Tsunade asks, "What was that about, Naru-kun?" The redhead shakes his head in response and sits down on one of the empty cushions, bringing the blonde with him so she's sitting in his lap. He then spends the rest of the day and evening with his most valued friends and family, telling them he just got in today and that he hasn't told Sarutobi that he's back yet but plans to do so tomorrow. Ground 9 for training clone Naruto and Izumi. The clone and Izumi show up in the former Team 9 training grounds while the original Naruto is occupied with reuniting with his first family while the redhead merely looks back gravely. The black-haired 18-year-old leaps away from the clone and glares at it. She looks at him in mild surprise as he sighs and crosses his arms, saying, "The lost light in your eyes is a symptom of the Mangekyo Sharingan. What I want to know is how long you've had it and how did you get it?" The woman looks at him for a while and seeing that he is refusing to drop it breathes deeply. "I've had the Mangekyo for about a year, and ever since I got it I've used it only in the most dire of situations, just like my regular Sharingan. As for how I got it, it happened during a battle last year when I pushed my eyes past their limits to survive. Suddenly I felt them burn, then my vision became even better and I was flooded with new power. And then one technique hit me as if I've known it all my life. The name of that technique was Amaterasu." As he picks up where she left off, the redhead nods his head and says, "Then your right eye bled and your enemies were covered in black flames." She looks at him in disbelief but nods her head. He breathes a sigh of relief. "I would have preferred you never had to gain that power, Izumi. The Mangekyo is a dangerous weapon, and it has led many of your clan down a terrible path of death and destruction. If you need proof, then look no further than Madara Uchiha." "How is it you know about the Mangekyo?" "I only learned what it was after I'd returned to the village and checked my clan's archives. From what they said, the Mangekyo is a closely guarded secret of the Uchiha clan that is not told to outsiders, although it didn't tell me anything about the blindness using it would cause." Naruto laughs at this, rubbing the back of his head nervously. She stares at him for a few minutes before he finally breaks down and says, Okay, I'll talk. I read about it in the Senju archives. The first Hokage Hashirama Senju as well as the second Tobirama Senju both had notes on the Sharingan in all its various forms. Both fought with men that had the Mangekyo in Madara Uchiha and his younger brother Izuna Uchiha respectively. In Hashirama's notes was a short notation about how the eye causes blindness and therefore is a double-edged sword. However, there was also a note in Tobirama's notes that stated that after the death of Izuna, Madara's sight came back to him and his Sharingan was stronger than ever. He writes, and he believed that Madara had taken his brother's eyes and transplanted them into himself and that somehow reversed the effects of the Mangekyo and even made it stronger. The black-haired woman is shocked when he gives her a gentle head rub and smiles down at her. "Are you saying that I could reverse my blindness by simply transplanting the Sharingan of another member of my clan into my eye sockets?" she asks, looking up at him with a startled yet hopeful expression. Knowing that no one else in her clan, particularly not her parents or younger brother, has a Mangekyo Sharingan, she lowers her head at this. "No, it won't work with just any Uchiha. The donor has to be a close blood relative like a parent or sibling. Also that person has to have the Mangekyo as well, otherwise it won't take and you'll still go blind." He shakes his head at this. "Don't cry, Izumi, not all is lost. The transplant could be performed using the eyes of a direct blood relative down the line who died but had the Mangekyo. What you need to do is go back in your direct family tree and search for anyone might have had the Mangekyo. When you find that person you can ask the clan head to allow you to have that person's still viable eyes which your clan stores in a secret place." She starts to cry over the hopelessness of it all, but then she feels a pair of strong arms envelop her in a comforting embrace. As he continues to comfort her, she sniffles. "If you find that none of your direct relatives ever had the Mangekyo, then I have one more option to help you, but it's a last resort and untested. So don't lose faith but also don't get your hopes up, okay?" she says, nodding her head into his chest. However, their position finally dawns on her, and she blushes because she has never been this close to a man other than her father, and that was completely different. "Alright, I'm going to pop and let the boss know how things went. You can head back to the house if you want to grab your sandals." he says as he releases her and moves away from her while she wipes the tears from her eyes. The clone then vanishes in a puff of smoke, returning Izumi's memories to the original and leaving him standing there, still blushing and contemplating how warm his chest was. But she quickly dismisses those thoughts with a shake of her head. Bad Izumi. Tsunade-chan and Naruto are deeply in love. He would never be interested in you in that way, in addition to the fact that your relationship with him has never been more than that of a brother and sister. Furthermore, interfering with him and Tsunade-chan would be improper since this was a one-time event. It would be best to return to the Senju residence, grab your sandals, and then leave for home. With that thought firmly in her mind, she does just that. When she returns, she tells the house's occupants that she just went back for her sandals and that she was going home because she had a lot to do and think about after telling the four to have a good evening and thanking Naruto, who grinned at her and nodded his head in her direction while he was playing Go with Nawaki. Tsunade, a close friend, was asked if she was okay. She replied that everything was fine and even smiled at her before leaving. Village of Leaf the Tree Bud Orphanage. After 2 days, Naruto went straight home after returning to the Leaf 2 days ago. He kicked Nawaki's butt in both shogi and go, and he and Mito talked about Fuinjutsu on the first night he was with his first family, but he spent the most time with Tsunade because he missed her so much. They cuddled all night long, giving each other little kisses and caresses, and when it was time for bed, they went to his room, made out on his bed, and fell asleep together while grinning. Fortunately or unfortunately for him, depending on your point of view, the Hokage was not alone in his office at the time. Homura, Kaharu, and of course Danzo, who was wearing his full Anbu gear, including a dragon mask, were all standing there when he went to the Hokage Tower the following day to tell Hiruzen that he was home. When asked when he had arrived, he told them that he had arrived the previous evening. Sarutobi and Kaharu gave him warm greetings, while the other 2 men nodded respectfully. Homura said that he should have reported right away rather than lingering, which caused him some trouble. He responded that the first place he went was home. When Sarutobi heard that, he laughed, said it was okay, and welcomed him back. He also said he would give him a few days to get used to the village before returning to active duty. After telling him it was okay, he left the office and immediately ran into a big roadblock. When he looked at the roadblock, he saw that it was Jiraiya, and that's when he realized how much the man had grown. His first and best friend had grown significantly over the 3 years he was gone, standing 6 feet 3 inches and about 2 inches taller than him. However, his build is much larger, with bulging muscles and broad shoulders, and he would estimate that the white-haired man weighed at least 190 pounds. Jiraiya welcomed the redhead home in his own goofy way by grinning broadly and giving him a tight hug as soon as he saw who he had bumped into. Naruto, for his part, accepted it and said it was nice to see him naturally. He inquired as to whether the man had recently visited any hot springs, to which the man replied, every chance he gets. Following a few minutes of conversation, Naruto informed Jiraiya that he had to leave and that they could continue their conversation at their regular barbecue place. That evening the red-headed toad leaves the tower and enters the town, and the white-haired toad summoner said he would see him there. He encountered Orochimaru and Tsukumo, the final 2 members of their 6-person group, while strolling around the town. Surprisingly, they were together and appeared to have recently completed training. The 2 gave him warm greetings, and he returned the favor by telling them they looked good. He saw that Orochimaru, who was now 5 feet 9, and weighed only 125 pounds, had also grown, with hair that now reached his butt. Tsukumo's appearance was unchanged from 6 months prior, with the exception that his clothes had some minor scuffs from their sparring. He congratulated him and wished him luck after they briefly caught up, and Orochimaru informed him that he would shortly begin his sage training with the snakes. After about 20 minutes, they made the decision to split up and meet at the barbecue place later that evening. When Naruto showed up with his girlfriend on his arm at the Akamichi barbecue later that evening, everyone gathered and caught up. When Jiraiya questioned him about how difficult it was to become a sage, he replied that it really depended on the individual and the summons who were teaching it. It was fairly simple for him to learn from the dire wolves, but the white-haired teen will likely find it much more difficult to learn from the toads. If you don't maintain your sage chakra level in line with your reserves, then there's the chance of either being permanently turned to stone or acquiring characteristics of the animal you're learning from. Jiraiya became terrified after learning that, babbling on about how getting a lot of warts and looking like a toad would ruin his chances with women. Everyone but him laughed when Tsunade pointed out that his perversion already ruins any chance he has with a woman. They all parted ways once more after dinner, with the redhead and his blonde sweetheart returning to the Senju compound. While traveling there, he informed her of his plans for the day. Adopt a child and raise it as he would in order to prevent it from growing up alone. She gave him a gentle kiss and complimented him on his generosity, kindness, and caring nature, which is why she adores him so much. Thus, we find our hero today standing in front of the Treebud orphanage, which he was certain was Minato's childhood home. As he passes through the gates, he looks around at all the happy faces of the kids, both boys and girls between the ages of 2 and 10. He gives them a smile. When they turn to face him, he notices a familiar head of spiky blonde hair as he approaches the door and turns to see a 3-year-old, roughly 3 feet 1 inch chibi version of his father. But what distinguishes young Minato from his classmates is the intelligence he perceives in his eyes as the young child effortlessly reads a book intended for a child twice his age. "Whatcha reading, little one?" he asks, grinning as he approaches the young blonde and sits down next to him on the bench. Without recognizing any threat from the red-haired man, the boy looks up from his book and responds naively, "I'm reading about the first Hokage." Naruto examines the book and affirms that it is, in fact, a book of stories about the exploits of Hashirama Senju. He then laughs and says, "I see I've read that book before. It's well written, if a bit dry for my tastes. Then again, I've been told stories of the man by people who knew him personally." "Really? You know people who knew the first? Who? What was he like?" the blonde asks, closing the book, immediately grabbing his attention. Whoa. One question at a time. First off, why don't we introduce ourselves? I'll go first. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, Jonin rank shinobi of the village, the redhead says, laughing at the 3-year-old's excitement. This causes the boy's eyes to enlarge. "You're a shinobi? Sugoi. My name is Minato Namikaze. I'm an orphan. I want to be a shinobi someday." Naruto beams at him. "Nice to meet you, Minato-chan. Yeah, I'm a shinobi and a pretty strong one, as well as for knowing people who knew the first Hokage. I happen to live with his wife and granddaughter. Also, the third Hokage, who was his student, happens to be like an older brother to me." With wide, excited eyes, the young boy says, "Wow. What's that like? I would love to live with people who knew the first 2 Hokage." His eyes sparkle at this. The little blonde frowns but nods his head as he returns to reading his book, while the redhead gets up and approaches the matron of the orphanage, a woman in her 30s with brown hair and gentle brown eyes. Naruto pats his head at this and sighs as he sees the matron approaching them. "Well, kiddo, it was nice talking to you for the time being, but I really should go and have a chat with the matron." "Why were you speaking to Minato-kun, sir? Why did you come here to the orphanage?" the woman asks him when he gets to her. When she hears that he wants to adopt a child, she looks at him suspiciously because she can tell he's young and can infer from his clothing that he's a shinobi because they always wear mesh armor underneath their clothes. Uzumaki, who is 18, smiles at her and replies, About that, I came here because I wanted to adopt a child. My reason for talking to Minato is because he caught my eye sitting there alone reading a book for a 6-year-old. What is your name and how old are you, sir? She asks, scowling at him. I'm 18 years old. As for my name, you may have heard of me. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. The young man simply smirks at her in response, and the woman's eyes enlarge upon hearing his name because every adult in the Leaf is aware of the identity of the young man who rescued Hidden Eddy Village from the Hidden Cloud, Mist, and Rock villages. On a more gossipy note, every woman in the village talks about the redhead's relationship with Tsunade Senju, the stunning heiress of the Senju clan, and how fortunate the young lady is to have such a kind and attractive young man by her side. She quickly regains her composure and bows to him. Please forgive my rudeness, Naruto-sama. However, why would you want to adopt an orphan? It is well known that yourself and Tsunade-sama are together, and it is believed that someday you will marry and have children. The S-rank shinobi slightly frowns at this as he has arms in response. I know what it's like to lose your parents at a young age. I'd like to give one of these children someone they can look up to, someone to give them the love and attention that they're missing from their parents. I know I may be young, and yes, in the future Su-chan and I will likely have our own children, but that won't ever stop me from caring for the child I adopt here today. As if she didn't already know, the older woman smiles at the young man, and the conviction in his voice makes her heart sing. I see. Well then, have you made a choice already on who you'd like to adopt, Naruto-sama? She asks, and the redhead nods his head. Alright then, follow me inside to my office and we'll get started on the paperwork. Oh, who have you decided to adopt? She asks. I'm going to take Minato-chan. I can tell that he's smart for his age, probably even a genius, and being a genius myself, I think I'm uniquely qualified to give him the kind of attention he needs. Plus, he reminds me of myself a bit. He has an interest in the Hokage and wants to be a shinobi so he can protect the village and the people he cares about. Naruto grins at her and nods as she leads him into her office to complete the paperwork. The matron asks one of the caregivers to pick up Minato after a half hour and numerous signatures. A few minutes later, the young blonde enters the office and asks, You called for me, matron-san? With a bewildered expression on his face, however, he smiles at the 18-year-old after realizing that the redhead is also present. Yes, Minato-kun, I have good news for you. You have been adopted by this young man here, the woman says with a smile and a nod. Is that true? Did you adopt me, Naruto-san? The little blonde asks shyly, looking at the smiling redhead in shock. It's true, Minato-chan, I've signed all the paperwork and everything and I'm now technically your father, but you don't have to call me Tsunade if you don't want to call me whatever makes you comfortable, the redhead says as he gets up, puts his hand on the child's head, and nods. Naruto gives the little blonde a gentle hug and a smile, saying, "You're welcome, Sochi, now go gather your things and I'll take you to your new home." Minato nods contentedly and leaves the room to collect his belongings. Minato can only smile with joy as he lunges at the older boy and hugs him around the waist. "Thank you, Tsunade," Minato says. "You've made that little boy very happy. If I may ask, Naruto-sama, how will Tsunade-sama take you adopting him?" the matron remarks with a smile. "She's fine with it. I already told her the other night what I planned and she was cool with it, even told me how kind I was." Naruto turns to face her and grins as he answers, "I think that she'll probably take on the role of mother for him." The woman nods in agreement as the little blonde returns with a backpack full of his clothes and other possessions. When the redhead notices how full it is, he laughs and pulls out a scroll, which reveals a storage seal. He then takes the bag from his new son, places it on the seal, applies some chakra, and it disappears. "There you go, kiddo. Storage scrolls are much easier to carry than huge packs of stuff," he says as he rolls up the scroll and gives it to Minato. "Sugoi. What was that, Tsunade? How did you make the backpack go into the scroll?" the blonde asks, gazing at him in wonder. The redhead giggles and beams. "That my new son is a branch of the ninja arts called Fuinjutsu. It's something that my clan, the Uzumaki, excel at. It's one of the things I'll teach how to do over the next few years." "Alright, you ready to go to our home and meet the rest of the family?" asks Naruto, rubbing his head. "Alright, you ready to go to our home and meet the rest of the family?" Minato nods, and the young man smiles at the matron. "Thank you, miss, I'll be sure to take good care of Minato. See you around." The two men vanish in a flash of red, shocking the matron, who simply shakes her head and gets up to check on the other kids in her care. The Senju house. A few seconds later, in a flash of red, Naruto and his newborn son emerge in the Senju house's foyer. The 3-year-old falls to his butt after experiencing vertigo from the teleportation. Turning to face him, Naruto cradles him in his arms and gives him a head pat. "I apologize for that, kiddo. I didn't realize you had never used a chakra technique yet." After gradually regaining his bearings, the little blonde asks, "What was that, Tsunade?" The redhead giggles before responding, "That was a time-space ninjutsu that the second Hokage created and that I reworked and perfected. It's called the Hiraishin and allows me to teleport from one place to another in an instant so long as the place I'm going has one of my seal markers." "Wow, how fast can you move with it?" Naruto smirks as he takes off his sandals with his feet, then uses his free hand to remove the boys and place them next to 3 other pairs near the door. The young blonde's eyes brighten at this, finding it pretty cool. Astonished, Minato responds, "Fast enough to take out thousands of enemies within a few minutes." His new father then says, "Now get ready because you're about to meet the rest of your new family." When the young child realizes he will have more family than just his new father, his eyes widen, and he becomes extremely anxious. What if he is disliked by the other family members? What if, in contrast to his new Tsunade, they are all cruel to him? What happens if he isn't worthy of joining an amazing shinobi family? As Naruto follows him to the sitting room, all of these ideas and more go through his mind. The young blonde emerges from his reverie as they enter the room to glance around and notices 3 other people seated there. 2 women and a slightly older boy, who is probably 13 or 14. Each of them reacts differently when they see the little blonde in his arms, but Mito, Tsunade, and Nawaki all turn to face the room's entrance in search of their favorite redhead. Mito hopes that the child is not his biological child and wonders who the child is and why he and Naruto have similar facial features. Why his honorary brother is holding a little blonde child in his arms baffles Nawaki. However, Tsunade beams with joy at her love for his big heart after he informed her that he was going to go adopt a child today. She then gives the little blonde a warm smile and can't help but think that he might resemble her and Naruto's future son. However, Mito is the first to emerge from her shock, asking, "Naruto-kun, who is that child? Please don't tell me that he is your son, because if so then that means you have cheated on Su-chan and I will have to punish you. Actually, as of 10 minutes ago he is my son, however he's not biologically mine, so don't worry about that, Mito Obasan. I adopted him from one of the orphanages. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Minato Namikaze Uzumaki." "Minato-kun, meet everyone," Naruto replies, smirking slightly at her tone but smiling as he shakes it off. With a clumsy smile, Minato waves, "Hi, I'm Minato," and raises his head from his new father's shoulder. "Oh, you're so cute, Min-chan. I'm Tsunade Senju, but you can call me Ka-chan if you want. After all, Naru-kun and I have been together for years now." The boy, for his part, just nods his head slightly as he hears his Tsunade laughing at the woman's actions. The blonde Senju gets up and rushes over, quickly removing the boy from her love's arms and giving him a tight hug and rubbing her cheek. "Nei-chan, let the poor kid go already. I'm sure he's traumatized having some strange woman he's just met grabbing him and hugging him, telling him to call her Ka-chan. Let the kid get to know you a little more before you start doing such strange things." Nawaki chooses to feel sorry for the 3-year-old. The elder Senju puts the young boy down and turns to glare at her younger brother for his remarks. The teen simply chuckles and turns to the child who is holding out his hand. "My name is Nawaki Senju and I'm the crazy girl's younger brother." "Nice to meet you," Minato says as he approaches the brown-haired teen and shakes his hand. He then turns to face the oldest person in the room and asks, "Are you my Tsunade's Ka-chan?" with an inquisitive look. "No, little on, I am not Naruto-kun's mother, though we are family. We both hail from the Uzumaki clan of Whirlpool. My name is Mito Uzumaki Senju and I am in fact the grandmother of Su-chan and Waki-kun," Mito responds, sighing in frustration as the 3 younger shinobi start laughing. "You're the first's wife," the boy exclaims, turning to face Naruto and saying, "Tsunade, you didn't tell me you were a relative of the first and second Hokage." His eyes widen at this realization. When the young man says, "Well, I did tell you that the jutsu I used to get us here was one created by the second and which I perfected. How else do you think I got my hands on a jutsu from one of the Hokage?" The red-headed boy laughs and nods his head, comprehending the young man's point quickly. Minato nods and is swiftly escorted upstairs by Naruto and Tsunade after Naruto claps his hands to jolt him out of it. "Now that the introductions are over, let's take you upstairs and pick you out a bedroom and then you can unpack your stuff and put it away and then we can all have lunch together as a family and you can get to know us all much better." After selecting an empty room 3 doors down from Naruto, he unpacks his few possessions, placing his books on the bookshelf and his 2 extra outfits in the dresser drawers. He was then escorted back downstairs and into the dining room for a pleasant lunch by the 2 shinobi. The young family got to know the boy fairly well, learning that he aspires to be a ninja when he grows up and that he admires all of the Hokage, but particularly the second, who was regarded as a genius, and he heard the matrons discuss how he was one. His new father is well known throughout the world for defeating an army of hundreds of thousands of shinobi from 3 of the other 4 great villages. He discovered he also expressed his regret upon learning of Nawaki's leg injury, which put an end to his ninja career. He also learned that Tsunade is one of the current Hokage's 3 students. He began to question her about Sarutobi and what he had taught her, to which she cheerfully replied in response to his question about why Mito appears almost young enough to be Tsunade and Nawaki's mother if she is their grandmother. She explained that the Uzumaki clan has a sort of bloodline limit because of their exceptional longevity, which keeps them in peak physical form for a long time and has the unintended consequence of slightly delaying their aging. Because it is not unusual for an Uzumaki to live to be 200 years old unless they are killed in battle first, she is regarded as middle-aged by the Uzumaki clan, despite the fact that most people consider her to be an elder and a senior citizen. The blonde thought this was pretty cool and expressed his wish to be Naruto's son in order to live a longer life and continue to be a great ninja. He even disclosed that becoming the Hokage is already his dream. Minato was a little exhausted after lunch, so Naruto took him back to his room for a nap. He told him that dinner would be served in a few hours before putting him to bed and telling him to sleep tight. After 2 weeks ground of training, 2 weeks have passed since Naruto adopted Minato, and during that time, the 18-year-old redhead has learned a lot. However, today we find him sparring with Tsunade in Training Ground 7, who has recently grown irritated with him, as evidenced by her constant uprooting of trees and cratering of the ground while trying to strike him. Her frustration stems from the fact that she has been subtly hinting that she is prepared to have sex with him in order to advance their relationship, but the redhead is so stubborn that it has completely gone over his head. That's why she's currently beating the man she loves into paste in an attempt to release some of her sexual frustrations. When she tries a left hook, he sidesteps it and strikes her in the ribs with the tips of his fingers, striking a pressure point there, making her numb and grunting in agony. Then, avoiding his follow-up roundhouse, she tries to elbow his thigh, but he disappears in a body flicker and shows up 100 feet away. He whistles, "Wow Suheim, that super strength of your never fails to impress," as he surveys the training ground's damage. "However, I can't help but to feel like you're trying to tell me something with all this destruction. Did I do something to piss you off? If I did, then I'm sorry. You know I never try to make you mad intentionally. I'm not Jiraiya after all." The blonde smiles smugly. At this point she can't help but laugh at his last remark because it's true that Jiraiya frequently irritates her and always gets sent flying into the distance by a super strength punch to the jaw. However, she quickly moves past it, glaring at him before hurrying him more quickly than before with her chakra-coated fist raised up. "You baka. Of course I'm mad. I've been trying to tell you something all week and you're too stupid to notice. He appears behind her and manages to bring her arm down to her side while he wraps his own arms around her body. Holding her there tightly, she snarls at him while writhing in his embrace, attempting to break free, but she starts to lose her will as he plants kisses on her neck from behind. I'm sorry Suheim, please forgive me for not getting whatever message you were trying to send me the last week. I know it's not an excuse, but I've had other things on my mind, like being a new father to Minato. Also, I've been thinking all week of the perfect way to ask you something but couldn't come up with anything that hasn't been done a million times before or wasn't too flashy, so I'm going to ask you right now. Tsunade Senju, with you marry me? Naruto smiles in his heart. However, the blonde is only partially paying attention because she is enjoying his attention. Naru-kun, I'll do whatever you want. She says, her confused thoughts finally clear up when she hears the words, marry me, and she turns around in his arms, looking shocked. Did you just say what I think you just said? She asks. He asks, depends, what do you think I just said, with a small smile. Saying, don't play dumb with me, did you just ask me to marry you? She gives him a slap on the chest. Yes, I did. I love you, Tsunade. More than anything in this world. We've been dating since we were 13, and for the years I was in Whirlpool I missed you more than I've ever missed anyone. Even my parents, I couldn't imagine ever living my life without you, and so I want to make us permanent by making you my wife. So what do you saw MMPH? The redhead nods. Should I take that as a yes? He asks with a broad smile as they split up after 5 minutes of kissing. After giving him another quick kiss, Tsunade says, yes, I'll marry you, Naru-kun. You're the only man I have ever loved and ever will love. I've been waiting for you to ask me to marry you since before you left for Whirlpool. Naruto laughs at this and pulls out a small storage scroll from his coat pocket. He then opens it, bites his thumb, smears his blood on the seal, and applies some chakra. A diamond ring with a 3-carat princess-cut diamond set into a golden band with the Senju and Uzumaki clan symbols carved on either side of the band appears in a puff of smoke. The diamond shines in the sunlight as he places it on her left ring finger, and she raises her hand to gaze at it. She places her hand down, smiles broadly, squeals, leaps into his arms, and gives him a third kiss as they lock lips and tongues. Neither of them is able to contain their smiles, but eventually they both need to take a deep breath and separate. Tsunade starts rubbing her thighs together because she can no longer bear it. She whispers in his ear, flash us to my bedroom, I want you now. While rubbing the small bulge in his pants, her eyes are full of lust and love. Just as their teammates arrive to find the training ground essentially destroyed, the redhead nods his head and grabs hold of her before they disappear in a flash of red after showing up in her bedroom. Naruto and his blonde sweetheart spend the next 4 hours enamored with each other. Fortunately, the redhead used a shadow clone to apply privacy seals to the room, so no one in the house can hear Tsunade's groans and screams of orgasmic bliss. After 4 hours, main house of Senju, the bedroom of Tsunade. The two newly engaged shinobi are lying together in the blonde's bed after 4 hours of passionate kissing, still nude, drenched in perspiration, and beaming with happiness. As Naruto's arms encircle her and Tsunade rests her head on his chest, she can't help but think of how happy she is, not just because she and her love elevated their relationship to a new level, but also because of his proposal and the fact that she will soon become Mrs. Tsunade Senju Uzumaki. The redhead looks down at her as she giggles at this thought. Want to share what's funny with the class, Susu? She asks. Oh, nothing, Naru-koi, I was just thinking about the future and how someday I'm going to be Mrs. Tsunade Senju Uzumaki, the blonde says, snorting at the new name as she looks up at him from her position on his chest. With a laugh, Naruto says, why Senju Uzumaki? Why not Uzumaki Senju? Or you could continue to be Tsunade Senju and I could be like Mito Obasan and start calling myself Naruto Senju Uzumaki. We could do the name thing however you want. She gives him a kiss on the pectoral muscle. You're sweet, Naruto. I know you said I could just keep the Senju name and not take yours at all because I'm actually the legal head of the Senju clan now, but I want to incorporate the Uzumaki surname into my name to show that I'm married to the most wonderful man in the world. At this point, the redhead feels a little bad because, like most people, he has kept some secrets from her. Now that you've said that, I feel like I have to be completely truthful with you so that our marriage doesn't start on a bad note. All the abilities and the bloodlines I have that you know about are not actually all the bloodlines I have. He sighs to himself as he decides it's time to tell her one of his greatest secrets. What do you mean they aren't all the bloodlines you have? What other bloodline could you have besides the elemental ones and your Uzumaki longevity? The blonde asks, sitting up and staring at him in confusion. He sighs once more at this point, thinking, here goes nothing. His eyes change from their typical deep blue to a crimson red, with 3 black tones in each eye and a black pupil, as he activates his final hidden bloodline with that thought in mind. At this, the Senju gasps because she knows those eyes are those of the Sharingan, the rival clan of her own, The Uchiha clan, she looks confused. How? How do you have the Sharingan? Naruto, tell me this is Genjutsu and you're just pulling my leg. It's no illusion. Tsunade, these eyes are the real deal, the 100% Sharingan in its fully evolved form, he says, shaking his head. She nods her head. But how? I thought you were a pure-blooded Uzumaki. To have the Sharingan you'd have to be at least part Uchiha. The red-headed person smiles slightly at this. I know. I thought I was pure Uzumaki too. Both my parents had the red hair of the Uzumaki clan. But I developed these eyes after graduation while training alone one day. At first I was freaked out because I knew it meant that one of my parents had to have had Uchiha blood in them. But then I decided to keep it a secret lest it lead to too many questions which I can't answer, and so I've trained with them secretly for years and mastered them, but I never use them as my own skills, and regular eyesight has always been enough. At this point they're my biggest trump card against enemies should I ever encounter someone who is stronger than me that I can't defeat with my usual skills. Tsunade watches as his expression softens, smiles at him. The blonde returns to his side. It's okay, Naru-kun, I'm glad you told me about this, because it means our kids could potentially inherit not only your elemental bloodlines but also the Sharingan. However, it doesn't change the fact that I love you and that you are still the best man I know. He gives her a wide grin and kisses her forehead. Thanks, Suheim, but could you keep it secret from everyone else? I'm afraid others might not be as understanding as you about me being part Uchiha. Especially the Uchiha clan. I mean, they already hate Izumi's friendship with me because of my being an Uzumaki, and in their eyes Uzumaki equals Senju. She laughs, but she nods, and he thanks her before shoving her out of bed and into the attached bathroom. As Nawaki and Mito give them knowing looks and Minato asks his father where he was for lunch, Tsunade chooses to accompany him in the shower, and they wind up having fun in the bathroom for an additional hour before heading downstairs for dinner. The redhead stutters as he tells the boy that he'll tell him when he's older, and both young adults blush and spit out their food. The young blonde tilts his head sideways in a cute, perplexed way as a result. After 2 months, the boundary between the land of wind and the land of fire. Following their recent battle, Tsunade and an entire group of leaf shinobi are seen panting heavily. Tsunade was given command of a company of 100 ninja a few days ago with the task of looking into rumors that a platoon of sand shinobi was approaching the fire countryside of their border. It was worse than they had anticipated when they arrived at their current location, as they discovered a whole battalion of sand shinobi gathered on the border, ready to cross into their territory. Rather than just a platoon quick thinking, Tsunade called forth a slug and instructed it to transmit a message to Sarutobi for prompt reinforcements. She then gave her platoon the order to observe and not move until the enemy did. When some sand ninja sensors discovered them and their commander ordered an attack on her platoon, that notion was swiftly put to rest. The ensuing battle was swift and vicious, and she killed 10 of the sand nin's men for every one of her own, demonstrating why it was risky to fight an enraged Senju. But eventually, both sides' numbers had decreased. The enemy battalion had decreased from 400 to 150, while her side now only had about 20, including herself. She can see by looking around that her small remaining squad will not be able to withstand the next attack from the enemy company, and one of her summons states that their backup is still at least a day away. After making up her mind, she cuts the palm of her right hand, swiftly completes the 5 hand seals, and then slams her hand on the ground while yelling, summoning jutsu. A huge puff of smoke appears, and when it clears, Tsunade is seen standing atop the head of the slug queen Katsuyu. The slug boss. She is mostly white with 3 blue streaks that run vertically down the middle and sides of her body from her head and taper at her tail. Katsuyu is huge, easily as large as the bosses of the snakes and toads. What can I do for you, Tsunade-sama? Katsuyu asks her summoner as she turns one of her optical tentacles in response to being called to a battleground. Katsuyu, I need you to cover those sand nin as your asset. I'm sorry to bother you with this, but my group is down to 20 including myself, and the enemy number's 150 still, and most of my people are out of chakra. In fact, I just used most of what's left of my own chakra to summon you, so you're our last hope. The blonde Senju smiles at her personal summons and longtime partner. She turns her gaze back to the enemy ninja and says, very well, Tsunade-sama. I know that I'm not very useful, but I will try my best to defeat the enemy for you. The sand ninja are shocked when she spits out a massive wave of acid at their left flank, covering them in the sticky yellow substance that quickly starts to eat away at them. As the slug turns to spray another round of acid, the remaining sand nin all prepare whatever earth jutsu they have to defend themselves. Within a few minutes, 45 sand shinobi and kunoichi are dead, reduced to nothing more than heaps of bones from the acid. To everyone's surprise, though, a massive wall of black sand completely blocks the second shot of acid as soon as it exits the summon's mouth and heads their way. The leaf nin start to shudder in terror after hearing the tales of that sand and its user, while all the sand nin who recognize that black sand start to cheer. For her part, Tsunade simply looks straight ahead at the tall, fair-skinned figure riding a cloud of black sand. The figure has narrow yellow eyes and short, untidy dark blue hair. This man, who is currently the third cage of the sand village, is dressed in the traditional cage garb, except without the hat and with a flowing white cape. As he looks up at the blonde on the summoned animal, the man pauses in front of his ninja and descends to the ground, remembering all of his black sand, which is known as iron sand. He turns away from the other 19-leaf nin before opening his yellow eyes and looking at Tsunade. From the fact that you're on a slug, I'm going to assume you are Tsunade Senju, as she is known to summon slugs. I am also going to assume that you are the leader of your group, so I will say this only once. It is unfortunate that you stumbled upon this little battalion when you did. Had you not, then you may have survived to return to the leaf, and those you love. Be that as it may, I'm afraid I must end all of your lives here so as to send a message to the leaf that the sand will not be stopped in its expansion into Fire Country. Magnet release. Iron Sand Gathering Assault, Giant Spear. Jishin. Satetsu Keshu. Kyodaiso, he says, gesturing for his people to return to the other side of the border as he gathers all of his iron sand. With a wave of his hand, the spear of iron sand heads straight for Katsuyu, and more precisely for Tsunade. Aware that she is running out of time, the blonde grabs the engagement ring that is dangling around her neck and uses the last of her chakra to activate a particular seal inside. Magnet release. Cobalt Barrier. Jishin. Kobaruto Kekai, is shouted, followed by a flash of red. At that precise moment, a massive, solid wall of silver-colored metal blocks the iron spear's path entirely and even reflects it. A specific reed head emerges in front of Tsunade while perched atop the slug, his new fur-lined coat flapping in the wind and one hand raised to control the cobalt sand. "Are you all right, Suheim?" Naruto asks, turning his head slightly to face his fiancée. Senju, who is blonde, sighs with relief at the sight of her red-haired lover and responds, "I'm fine now that you're here, Naru-kun. We encountered a battalion of sand shinobi and engaged in battle, and now we're down to 20 and they were down to 150, now 105 after Katsuyu here took out some with her acid." He nods his head in agreement, sensing that the iron sand is being recalled to its user, and gestures for his own sand to break up and sit around him and Tsunade. He smirks slightly as he looks down and says, "I see the cage decided to show up and end the party. I'm glad you called me when you did, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to see your pre-face ever again and would have destroyed all of the sand in revenge." She shakes her head at his immaturity and he becomes serious, saying, "Haim, I want you and your men to fall back to the village. Don't try to argue with me. The battle to come is not something you or your squad may survive." She nods. "All right, Naru-kun, just promise me that you'll return to me." She can tell he's excited to battle the cage by the way his silver sand is moving. As Tsunade hops down to the treetops and tells Katsuyu she can go home, he turns to face her and gives her a quick kiss on the lips before saying, "Of course, Haim. Don't worry, I'll be back in time for a family dinner. Now you get out of here." He then creates a cloud of cobalt sand and floats down to the ground. The blonde and the rest of her team use the massive puff of smoke that the Slug Queen disappears in as a diversion to body flicker. As the older man recognizes the redhead, Naruto lands on the ground and confronts the third cage fearlessly. The cage turns to face his people and says, "All of you return to the village. None of you are strong enough to face this man. He is an S-rank shinobi responsible for the massacre at the Whirling Tides, the Leaf's bloody crimson flash, Naruto Uzumaki." Every shinobi and kunoichi present nods and follows their cage's orders to return. For his part, Naruto grinned at his impending foe, saying, "I see my reputation precedes me, as does yours. Kazekage-sama, the master of the iron sand." The 18-year-old redhead responds, "That it does, as does the rumor that you ransomed all the Jinchuriki you captured back to their villages for a hefty profit." The slightly older man nods his head. Although this is true, Naruto laughs at it without directly answering. He did, in fact, ransom the 6 Jinchuriki back to their home countries a few months after the invasion of Whirlpool was routed, demanding from the cages sums of money in the tens of millions of ryo for each. He charged 30 million and 60 million for the 3 and 6 tails and Mist, 40 and 50 million for the 4 and 5 tails and Rock, and 20 and 80 million for Cloud. Respectively, he split the total of 280 million ryo in half, giving the Leaf 140 million and keeping the other half for himself. As he prepares to confront his fellow magnet release user, he pulls himself out of his memories and gathers his silver cobalt sand behind him. Naruto asks, "Before we begin, tell me your name. I can't just refer to you as Kazekage the whole time we fight." The Kazekage responds similarly with his black iron sand. "You are correct about that. My name is Jin of the Sabaku clan. Now that we know each other's names, let us begin." The man laughs at this and nods his head in response. His iron sand then surges forward, followed by Naruto's cobalt sand, and the two metal sands clash, marking the start of a battle that will be talked about for years to come.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.